Hey everyone, welcome back to the Collectors Compass, the official podcast of Collectors MD, where we explore the intersection of mental wellness, intention, and collecting. I'm your host, Alex Efron, founder of Collectors MD, and today's episode is a really important one. We're joined by Dr. Aakar Shah, a physician, lifelong collector, and someone who knows firsthand both the joy and the addictive pull of this hobby. Today, we'll dig into the ways collecting can impact our mental, emotional, and financial health and talk about practical tools for keeping things in balance. Rick, welcome to the show, man.
Alex, thanks for having me on today. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate you taking the time. Awesome. Before we dive in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did your journey with collecting specifically begin, and how does it intersect with your medical background?
So as a physician, I'm a board certified family physician. I've been practicing about 20 years. I currently do urgent care medicine primarily. So a wide variety of scope of care, diagnosis, patients coming in. So a variety of things in general. So basically like shift work, like the ER. So I've been doing that for about 20 years now. And on a collecting standpoint, I've been collecting since 1987, essentially, when I got my first box of 1987 Topps baseball, and nothing like the memory of seeing that Bo Jackson Future Star card or the Mark McGwire card, and ever since then, it just was uphill from there.
Love it. And you're from Chicago, correct?
Yeah, born and raised in Illinois. Currently live in the northwest suburbs, and of course, I got my Cubbies on right now, and looks like they're winning for now, but the Brew Crew has been really tough this year. So,
yeah, the Cubs are a lot of fun to watch this year, especially with that young core they have, Kyle Tucker and PCA, Seiya Suzuki. We actually had a guest on earlier this year who is a Cubs fan. She was her name is Maya. She's very versed in the hobby, but has a really awesome PC of a handful of Cubs players. So we definitely love the. Do you follow Maya?
Yeah, she's great. I mean, young collector. She's got such a nice Instagram post of a lot of different things, and I know she's going to college soon. And it's cool to see women in the hobby in general. It was pretty much a male dominated collection, hobby for the longest time, but now to see crossover women in there, it's pretty exciting too. And it's exciting to see someone like her being so passionate about the hobby, and it's cool to see that. So
yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the topic, I wasn't even planning to do this, but we'll give Maya a quick plug. She was featured as our very first individual as part of our Collector Spotlight series back in May. And so, like you were saying, Rick, she just has such an incredible, sort of keen eye for photography and collecting. And these are just a few images from her Instagram feed where she features various pieces from her PC. And, she just really carries or embodies the mantra that we are all about here at Collectors MD, which is collect with intention, not compulsion. And that really shines through, I think, through the lens of how she sort of brings her collection to life in the form of photography. So, I figured I'd show that real quick while we were on that topic. But I do want to dive into our show today. Again, really excited to have you and sort of get a perspective from somebody with your medical background and experience. We have a lot to cover, so I am going to dive right into our first segment here. If you just bear with me as I shuffle my screens around here. Awesome. So the first segment we're gonna go over today is the medical lens on collecting and addiction. So, as both a doctor and a collector, you have a really unique perspective. We've already chatted quite a bit leading up to today, so I have a little bit of background as to what that looks like, but I'd love for you to share with our audience, what that looks like from your point of view. What does the combination of being in the medical world and collecting look like?
I mean, I guess it's a matter of looking at the hobby as just one of those passions, right? And there's obviously, in my field, I see, patients every day that, have, one of the questions we ask is like the social history, and that includes smoking, drinking, illicit drug use. And of course, I've seen a variety of patients that have been, addicted to alcohol, addicted to different forms of drugs, and some are in remission, some are being treated, some actually are in medications to prevent that addiction to continue. And for the most part, and if you look at the hobby, like, collecting cards, among other things, people collect all types of things, cars, they collect, just memorabilia by itself. They collect Beanie Babies back in the day. They collect, guns. There's just so many things that are out there. And it's a matter of looking at the hobby and correlating with addiction itself. And the question is like, is everyone who's a hobbyist addicted? Not necessarily.
Right.
But there is a fine line when you start looking at, what drives this kind of pathway into addiction. And we've been looking at the dopamine loop. And of course, dopamine is a neurotransmitter of the brain, one of the chemicals that we create in our brain that's been associated historically with rewards and pleasure seeking for the most part. And once you start getting into collecting in any perspective, you start going into potentially, this dopamine loop. You go to the dopamine highs, the dopamine lows. Basically the dopamine high could be as simple as, when someone eats a piece of chocolate or gets an A on their test, or on a collecting standpoint, pulls a 1 of 1. You get that endorphin release and you get that dopamine high, and you never forget that high. That high's there. But then you go and buy another box of cards, let's say $500-600, and you pull nothing but an auto of some player you've never heard of, and then your dopamine levels go down. Basically disappointment. I had one of those the other day. I got a box and just got skunked. I was like, oh my gosh, man, this was a waste of 2 Topps Chrome Baseball Fanatics exclusive that were just basically lost my money on. And I left that with a bad taste in my mouth. But it's a matter of like where you go with it. I mean, it depends on your experience, on how long you've been collecting. And of course, we have a lot of young collectors out there. And that's really the biggest concern, is that their cognitive brains are really developing. And this goes to even like just in general, drinking at an earlier age, trying drugs at an earlier age, caffeine, just any different things can, your brain's so malleable at a young age. But for, adults like us, we've lived life. We feel like we've earned the right to be in this hobby as a passion and just something to do on the side.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, Rick, first of all, that was an amazing sort of explanation of how the dopamine loop can really suck you in. But before I respond to that, do you mind just muting your phone? I think it's your phone. I just hear some chimes in the background, and I want to make sure that it's not
it could be my many different ring notifications and all that stuff going through. So let me see if I can make sure.
I bet it is. I mean, I can only imagine how many notifications you get on a daily basis as a doctor and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of like, hopefully that'll turn off now. So if it happens again, it'll pop up.
Yeah, no worries. You're probably completely immune to it. You probably don't even hear it. It's like my wife in her parents' house. Well, they fixed it finally, but there was a fire. The what's it called? Why am I drawing a blank? The sensor, the smoke detector. Yep. Would always chime whenever the batteries ran low, and it was like all the time, and they didn't hear it because they were so used to it, right? So that's what it must be like for you. Anyway, apologies for going off on a tangent there, but what really scares me is how this all sort of plays out with the kids, right? The next generation. You mentioned, like, as adults, at least we have some awareness. We have experience, life experience, lived experience. We know what things like emotions like anxiety or stress or depression might feel like, right? And for a 10 or 12-year-old ripping packs on Whatnot or in their local card store or Target or Walmart, or they're just watching their favorite YouTuber, open packs and hit big cards. They don't necessarily have like that filter yet, right? So that dopamine loop that you're talking about, kids are especially vulnerable to it, right? Because their brains are still developing and they haven't built the tools to hit pause or self-regulate. And so to them, it just, it feels fun, exciting, almost like a game, right? But the habits, they are building them early on, and they can really stick. And so that's where it gets dangerous, right? Because you're essentially wiring them to chase that next rush before they even understand things like money and finances and boundaries or the long-term consequences. And that's why I feel so strongly, that these conversations really matter, and we really need to bring them into the forefront, into the limelight. And it's not just about us adult collectors having these issues, which of course is a problem within itself, but it's about the next generation coming up and protecting them, because what they're being taught to normalize, it is really going to have a lasting impact on their development and their growth into adulthood. So that is obviously something that we talk about quite a bit at Collectors MD, and sort of hearing your side of, or hearing it from your perspective, your POV as a doctor, is really, really interesting. So I kind of want to break down the science of all of this. How do these dopamine cycles that we're talking about in collecting mirror those that are seen in other sort of vices, like maybe gambling or even substance abuse?
Well, a lot of it, if you look at dopamine itself, as we know, as a reward or gratification triggers cues. It becomes almost like, I'm sure a lot of people know Pavlov's dog, right? I mean, Pavlovian mechanics are just like cue response, cue response, cue response, and then you just sort of build this, this edge of wanting to, get to that next level of pleasure cycle, right? And it comes in various facets. The one thing I've read about is you have what's called a dopamine baseline too. Like when you were younger, collecting for the first time, you pulled the rookie card of just someone like a Ken Griffey Jr. base card back in 1989 Donruss. I got that rated rookie card, and it was like, oh, cool. It's worth like $5, right? And then you look at cards now, you look at base cards, and it's like, okay, that's, most kids would have been happy with a simple card of their favorite player or just a cool parallel. But once you start getting more and more into it, that baseline of dopamine starts to elevate to the next baseline, where it's like, okay, now I can't settle for feeling happy until I get that parallel. Right. And then auto. And then it has to be that hot player. And people will get to that point where they want to get to that baseline again, where the original baseline is now dissolved. And then it becomes almost like a chemical imbalance in a way, in respect to when you don't get that trigger cue to go to that baseline that you seek. Disappointment follows, dopamine crashes follow, signs of anxiety, depression, sadness, disappointment, anger. I mean, these are all things that could manifest from these kind of situations. So, when you look at just dopamine by itself, and this goes to, just like in respect to just even substances, when, you never could reach that, for someone who's, drinking, let's say, you have that baseline of feeling that buzz, right, of alcohol. But then that as you start drinking more, your tolerance and dependence goes down. And then you start to have to need more and more and more. And that's why I think that it becomes almost like a chemical, and the pathophysiology behind it becomes more of a pattern for people as the hobby progresses for people. And then we talked about this, and I've listened to your podcast. It's like it's not so much don't like the hobby, but setting boundaries. And that's what it's been about this whole time. Is the hobby definitely exploded, as we know, when the pandemic started. Pre-2020, it was here and there. I mean, I probably stopped collecting in my, after, once I got into college and med school residency, you had other priorities and funds. I mean, and then finally, with the love of sports, you sort of dabble into it here and there. But once 2020 hit, a lot of people, middle-aged, 40 plus even, they were just pretty much getting back into the hobby because of boredom. And they went through their old stuff and like looking on eBay, I'm like, man, this card's worth $130. And for people that were pulling their old stuff out, maybe didn't have even a generated source of income because the pandemic was affecting their employment, let's say, we're starting to sell. And then they started realizing that, oh, wow, these are tangible goods that can sell. They've always sold. We know that from the 80s that we had Beckett, Price Guide, tough stuff. But with the advent of technology, that's really what changed everything. Now that we have eBay, whatnot, Instagram, Facebook groups, which I'm in tons of those groups, the fact that you could sit in your couch and transact and look, watch breaks, be in breaks, buy and sell on eBay without even leaving the house makes it a huge deal. And this goes even with gambling too. You look at just like people, even the younger generations getting into things like FanDuel, DraftKings, and just making these bets. And they're, you don't have to go to a bookie anymore. You don't have to go to the casino anymore physically to do any of these things. You don't need to go to the local card shop or card show, even though we try to do that just to have the real life experience. But once you have that sensory ability for the cues to be encouraged on the technology of a simple mobile phone, that's when it all became escalating in my opinion. It almost became a pandemic within the pandemic, right? So
yeah, I love the way you put that, a pandemic within the pandemic. The actual pandemic ended, but the dopamine pandemic of sorts was only getting started. I like that.
I mean,
and it's
so
incredibly true
now, right? You see it on commercials.
Yeah.
You see your favorite athlete like Tom Brady, great, he's a GOAT, and he's got his like fifth card shop, one that just opened up across Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
You got shows on TV about it, Netflix, the King of Collectibles, Golden. You got multiple platforms that you have exposure to all this, and all these kids are seeing it. And there's a lot of father and son or father and daughter stuff going on. You collect together, and it's like a fun thing to do together. And we almost like sometimes actually feel like they are paralleling our dopamine highs and lows sometimes too, and that could become an issue too.
Right. Yeah, my niece, my 7-year-old niece, just got her first Labubu yesterday, so we're hopeful that doesn't open Pandora's box. And yeah, that's the latest fad, the latest craze that everybody's going nuts for. So like you said, it's crazy. It really is, when you think about how much more accessible that dopamine rush has become just by living in a digital world, a digital sort of society that today's day and age has become. Back when I first started, I grew up in the 90s. You had to wait. Maybe you go to a card shop on the weekend, go to a show. I didn't go to shows as a kid, but I know other people, other collectors my age, would go to shows or have that one big mail day you were looking forward to. There was time and space between those sort of highs, if you will. Now it's just constant, right? eBay auctions ending every second of every day. Whatnot streams running literally 24/7. It's a 24/7 access where you can literally sit down on your couch, like you said, and just virtually walk into what looks like an online casino. Instagram reels of massive hits popping up on your feed that just, create that sense of FOMO and make you, gives you that sense of urge, that unrelenting urge to just join a break or open one of the apps and participate. You've got the Facebook groups full of people flexing their latest pickups or, posting things for sale or for trade. And it's just nonstop. That instant access means the next hit is always literally right there in your pocket. And because of that, it's so much harder to unplug, take a step back, and reset when you really, really need to. And so, we're trying to help people figure out what works for them. What's the best strategy to be able to unplug and not let these different triggers, these different cycles reel you back in and just create constant chaos for you in your life. So, I think talk about the dopamine spike. It's just wild how this accessibility creates a constant need for this rush. I talk about this from time to time. I say, if I grew up in a different era that where technology wasn't even a thing, right? Like modern technology didn't exist, that we didn't have supercomputers as smartphones in the palm of our hands at all times. I don't think I would have ever got sucked into a lot of the things that have sucked me in and spit me out. So I think a lot of people can agree there. There are obviously other ways that you can sort of scratch the itch, whether that be through traditional gambling, which has existed forever, in-person casinos, obviously drugs and alcohol. But, the dopamine cycle has just become so accessible and so mainstream because of what we're seeing sort of play out in this digital age, this digital era. And like you said, you have influencers, celebrities, athletes sort of normalizing it. Folks like Tom Brady, who everybody looks up to, is this perfect specimen of a human on all fronts. Like, he could do no wrong, and he's creating these card shops and normalizing breaking culture. And I don't think he necessarily understands all of the nuances here. Like, understands that there are folks that are getting sucked in, in terms of addiction, the same way people are within gambling culture. And frankly, it's not his responsibility to know that. It's really more so the folks at the helm, at the corporate level of companies like Fanatics and whatnot, and some of the biggest manufacturers. So that's a huge part of what we're doing in terms of the efforts to push a sense of reform, so that we can educate and create awareness. Because if these folks at the corporate level aren't willing to set guardrails and create boundaries for us, then we're going to have to implement them ourselves. And so that's what we're doing quite a bit at Collectors MD, partnerships like Gamban and Birch's Health, creating tools and resources for the modern day collectors, so that they can set boundaries and create guardrails sort of artificially, if they need to. So on that front, keeping it sort of within the world of science, why do those sort of big hit moments, why do you think they feel so powerful within the hobby space?
Alex, I'm sorry, my computer actually cycled into my other Wi-Fi router, so I missed like the last 20 seconds. I apologize. I just had to reroute to my main router. I don't know why it toggled. So
that's okay.
What was your last statement? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I don't think it's worth repeating everything I just said. I was more or less just agreeing with you and reaffirming everything you said regarding these dopamine cycles and the digital era of collecting, and how a lot of these influencers are involved now, and sort of the guardrails need to be set in place at the corporate level, but aren't. So Collectors MD is working hard to push for reform, create awareness, educate, etc.
Going back to dopamine, one more thing that they're suggesting that actually not only is it just a reward chemical, pleasure chemical, but they almost think that now it's almost like a seeking chemical, right? So that's another huge point. So it just comes back to the thrill of the chase, right? So you look at, for example, when Topps released the patch debuts and the chase for the Paul Skeens card, right? We know how huge that was in publicity, and eventually, someone from California, apparently a young kid, finally pulled that 1-of-1 patch Skeens auto. Subsequently, was bought by Dick's Sporting Goods in Pittsburgh for $1+ million. Everyone was buying boxes to get that MLB debut card. I mean, it's more like the thrill of the chase. I mean, it's as big as that, or it could be as low as just trying to buy a bunch of Donruss football to get a downtown, or getting a bunch of absolute boxes to get at Kaboom. I mean, the people just are looking to get that seek for that one card, because when they pull that, it's nothing but elation, right? Because it's give you some value. It's a cool card. You're going to get some kind of ROI on it, and that's fun, because then you'll take that ROI and then buy more. Right. So that seeking the dopamine cycle is another facet that's also an issue that will get people to that, repetitive phase of wanting more than just the baseline that they started with, right? So
100%. And what's wild to me is how the first reaction to pulling a big card like the Skeens debut patch, I think, is an anomaly, just because of how monumental that card was and how big it was. Not, to say that people shouldn't think of profit first, but the first reaction to pulling any big card these days isn't even about the card itself, right? It's not, wow, this is amazing, I can't believe I hit this, I've always wanted one of these, or this is my favorite athlete and this is going to go on my PC forever. Instead, it's the instinctive response of, what's it worth? How much could it flip for? What's the grade? What's it going to grade? How's the condition, right? And that shift, that shift just says a lot about where the hobby's at right now. The purity of just appreciating the card, the design, the player, the story behind it has taken a back seat to monetary gain, to profit. And again, don't get me wrong, value is definitely a part of the equation, right? Because at the end of the day, like some folks maybe want to put an heirloom piece away to pass down to their kid one day, or to keep it in the family. And those sort of things definitely hold monetary value. But when the first thought is always the dollar sign, it strips away the joy and makes it feel more like a transaction than what it should be, which is a pastime, a passion.
Yeah.
And so what I was sort of segueing to was, why do you feel like those big hit moments, like when you pull a big card, feel so powerful in the hobby? Like, why do people feel that same dopamine rush they would get when they experience other great pleasures in life just by pulling a card, a piece of cardboard?
Yeah. I mean, bragging rights. I mean, the fact that you pulled something that big, you could talk about it. Value, you have tangible money involved with this, right? So that something that you pull that's going to be great. Let's say you pull, for instance, a Caleb Williams downtown. The first thing you're going to think probably is, wow, I pulled a downtown, and it's Caleb Williams. And now it's a $750 card. I could get $700 for it now, let's say. You're already thinking that route if you're one type of collector. If you're another collector, you're almost thinking like, oh man, Caleb Williams is my favorite quarterback right now. I love the Bears. I don't care what it's worth. I'm keeping this card. I'm putting it in a one touch and putting it on my mantle. So I just love it. It's just a cool card. And that's another way of thinking of it. But the way it is now, it's flipping. And it's like, the way that even the market is with Pokemon, same thing. I mean, it's just a big, it's Pokemon's just super popular. It's just out of hand. Like where you saw videos of people, standing in line at Target, Walmart, finding out where the next, the drop is going to happen at that store. And there's people that are just wild. I mean, they're just grown men fighting to get cards where they finally had to put a limit on it. And there was like fights that broke out. There's police presence. There's actually the, MJ Holdings truck that were being followed or probably Apple tagged and trying to find out where these guys are going to do their drops at the source. They could grab those boxes and flip them for double or triple the value because there's money to be able. Some people are making a living on this stuff. And then, people always talk about, well, what about the kids? And of course, the kids were definitely the collecting kids that are just innocent in all this. They were getting the shaft for not getting access to these cards because there was monetary value associated with like a commodity, right?
Yeah.
So that was tough to see for a while. I mean, of course, now it's just all about volume, and it's just so many ways of getting cards. And it's a matter of when, where, and how. And the how is going to be, a lot of it's going to be just through technology. Just go to a site, go to a break, go to the card shop itself has a website. You go to Fanatics, you go to Topps.com, and you get reminders, drops, Facebook groups. You could independently transact, marketplace. There's so many ways of getting cards, and it'll just keep on adding to that elation of wanting to get more and more. And then some people will just say, well, I just want to get the card for this value, and then just flip it because they know that this value is going to be, giving them $50 more in the pocket to eventually spend on more cards. That's where it comes down to the priorities.
Yeah, 100%. It really is, at a point where it's becoming out of hand. You mentioned the long lines at Target and Walmart, and a lot of these people are just resellers. They're not in it for the same reasons that we were back in the 90s or, even in the early 2000s. It's just become a giant, zoo of animals who just, who just want a quick buck, or make a quick buck off of, the manufacturers. I just want to give a quick shout out to the guys in the chat. Alex, Travis, appreciate you guys being here with us. Just to catch up on a few of the comments here. Alex says, my old cards haven't been worth much, fortunately, but it has been a blast going through them with my sons. I think that was in regards to some of the things we were talking about earlier with, father-son, father-daughter type of experiences with collecting, figuring out what apps you're willing to look at and what interval is crucial. Definitely. Millennials are definitely dealing with this as we ease our kids in technology and figure out the guardrails. Definitely. We just really have to look out for the next generation. It really is scary feels like people aren't playing Pokemon anymore. Yeah, people are definitely not playing the game. People are just in it for, um, the monetary gain and the value. So yeah, man, it's really scary. It's why I love trade nights at LCS, because it feels like what it used to be. I agree. I think the in-person interactions are far and few between these days. We rarely get those anymore. And that actually brings me to the next question I have. I think, on the access side, yeah, and it's crazy, Rick, the way social media has turned collecting into this endless sort of flavor of the week cycle. One day it might be Bowman, the next it's the Dutch auction for the latest Don first off the line Donruss Optic release, right? They have so many different formats now. I saw International Hobby of Mosaic Basketball just came out today, like,
Oh, I know.
which is like the fifth format that has come out for that product within the last month. They just keep cycling different parallels and inserts to keep people sucked in. And then suddenly some random insert nobody cared about a week ago is everywhere because a couple big accounts decided to pump it, right?
Yeah.
Our attention spans just keep getting shorter and shorter, and it feels like the hype machine is just pulling the strings. And as a collector, you feel that tug of like, if I don't jump in now, I'm missing the wave. This was actually the daily reflection that I wrote yesterday, touches on a lot of these things. And that kind of ties into the access side of things, the social media, the eBay, whatnot, Facebook groups. On one hand, it connects us, right? And makes the hobby more accessible than it's ever been. Alex brought up, that's why I love trade nights at LCS, is because it feels like that's what it used to be here. Like, trade nights at card shows. I know the National does a good job of organizing those. After the show, like those are huge. And now that we can sort of do that virtually with social media, it's kind of incredible. And we should absolutely take advantage of that. But on the other hand, it feeds this nonstop temptation and amplifies the FOMO that we always talk about. So I'm curious from your purview, how do you see that double-edged sword playing out?
I mean, I think it's exactly that. I mean, I think what you touched base on was on point about like just the hobby itself has obviously so many facets of enjoyment just in respect to like connections you make. And, I mean, obviously I'm here talking to you because of a social media group on Facebook as a card collecting Facebook group, Sports Card Nonsense, which I know there's a ton of members in that, but I happened to come across a thread and saw your post, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. Like that someone actually, I mean, I thought about it for a while. I'm like, wow, this hobby's just getting out of hand. And, and I got to say, like, I mean, I feel like I was feeling that myself as a passionate collector. I love it a lot. I love a lot of things. I mean, I love my family. I love my friends. I love my job. I love my dog. I love sports, but then I love this as a segue to just relaxation. I mean, I'm also a big TV junkie too, so I love TV and shows. But I mean, I think that the people I've met along the way, the collectors in these groups, and you have like almost like a camaraderie in a community. Right. I mean, I have a group of collectors I'm part of in Illinois, is like, that someone created that I met through a card show, and eventually some of these groups that are like the top 100 Cubs card collectors, right? Maya being one of them, actually. So I think that's a positive thing. And I think that, you got to be able to, a lot of it is going to be like anything in life, self-control and boundaries, right? You got to know when to hold them, and you got to know when to fold them, right? As the saying goes. And you got to know that you got to find a way to encompass this hobby as just a piece of your life, but not start to make it a Venn diagram situation where it starts to absorb into other aspects of your life, like your work and your family, and obligations and duties of other things. You gotta think of that too. So I don't know if that answered your question. I think that was sort of
no. I think you brought up a lot of really good points. It is sort of a complicated process, right? Because on one hand, we do have social media at our disposal at any time of the day. You can literally hop online and meet up with somebody on the other side of the world and be having a face-to-face conversation like we're doing right now about any and everything, which is a beautiful thing. And we should absolutely be taking advantage of that technology. But on the other hand, it just allows us to access any and everything at all times, maybe even some things that we might need to take a step away from at times. And there's always sort of that tug, that pull, especially when you're in your most vulnerable moment or your most vulnerable state, whether that be, first thing in the morning or maybe late at night. Everybody's wired differently. And, having access, being able to hop into a whatnot stream or, Instagram live or whatever the case may be at any time of the day, especially when you have other obligations like relationships and work and other things. You just have to be really, really careful.
Hold on one second. Not sure what happened there.
Right before your eyes, you watch me slip away.
There we go. I muted you until you could figure that out. Sounds like a concert just went off in Rick's home. So we'll let him figure that out. And in the meantime, let me pull up some of the comments here. Alex says kids don't trade cards like they used to. And I'm always worried that my sons are trading $20 cards for a $2 card when, it shouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, it's the worst thing is when you see kids getting taken advantage of, especially online, on social media, on eBay. That's where, we really have to protect them. Are we good now?
Yeah, we're good. Sorry about that. That was pretty odd. I'm trying to get on my AirPod here, but I guess as long as you can hear me on my Mac mic, that's all.
Yeah.
Any background noise to get in the way, so I figured I could change to this. But that's technology.
Yeah, no worries.
Not working.
Technology getting in the way.
But like you said, I mean, phones, computers. I mean, technology is not going away. It's only the beginning, right, of things that come. And maybe one day they're going to have virtual card collecting at some point, right? And you can see that there's a lot of that even going on now too. And then it's just one of those things where you can't get away from where things are going in life when it comes to technology. It's only going to go higher and higher, and the access is always going to be there. And now it's a matter of how do you do to curb that, though, and how do you put boundaries and rules on these situations? There's, do we need to screen time ourselves a little bit? So that's the thing, right? I mean,
right.
And I guess that, when you start thinking about all this stuff, then it leads into, I don't know if you're ready for talking about the Cage questionnaire, but
yeah, that's the next. I'll tee that up. That's actually our next segment. So first of all, I love that you bring medical tools into this conversation. One of the first things that you mentioned to me was the Cage questionnaire. And this was when you had first reached out from the Sports Card Nonsense group chat, which, by the way, if it wasn't for social media, you and I would have never connected. And
exactly.
The fact that we can have this conversation to ultimately and hopefully help other people is monumental. So we definitely should be, utilizing social media to our advantage where we can. And so one of the simplest but most powerful medical tools that you have at your disposal is that we have at our disposal is this Cage questionnaire. And for listeners who may not know, basically what it is, it's 4 questions that doctors use around alcohol use disorder. And so, we can walk through each of the 4 and how they might sort of directly apply to collecting. So do you want to start with C, which is cut down? Have you ever felt like you should cut down on your collecting?
Right. So, I mean, the Cage questionnaire, was created in 1968 as it was a screening tool, and the screening tool is primarily for alcohol. They have made it now for illicit drugs and stuff too, but there's a lot of the same facets. I mean, the thing is, it's not a diagnostic tool. The acronym of the Cage that we'll talk about, it's just that's all it is. But it could sort of help you identify if this is something that's going to be a problem. So in the Cage questionnaire for alcohol is, do you feel the need that you need to cut down alcohol, or has someone told you need to cut down alcohol? So if you relate that to cards, it's like, okay, has anyone ever told you need to cut down on collecting, man? You need to cut down on buying cards, right? So that's what it comes down to that, right? So that would be, the C part of it. And then when you look at the A part of it, A stands for annoyed. Have you felt that people around you, whether it's family, friends, or yourself, feel annoyed about collecting, annoyed about the hobby? That's what it comes down to for that. So
could it also apply the other way, where like you're feeling annoyed by somebody criticizing you about your collecting?
I think that comes down to your reaction on what you do within the hobby. Like, are you feeling annoyed that you're buying a full case and not getting the right case hit? Or if you're buying a box of cards and you get nothing but base, like that's what it came down to. That's annoying. That's an annoyance to me or any collector when it came down to it. And it's like, you definitely feel like self-annoyed or people being annoyed around what the hobby is, feeling to those around you.
Right. Gotcha. Cool. So, and then there's obviously G&I, guilty and eye opener. Something like, have you ever felt guilty about how much you spend or how much time you devote to the hobby with that?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, with alcohol, the premise was that do you feel guilty about drinking? Do you feel like this is becoming a problem?
Right.
So guilty being more of a self-aware thing, that would be more of the personal part of the person who's having the issue. And with cards, like, do I feel guilty that I've spent $1,000 in the last week on cards, or do I feel guilty that I decided to go to a card show instead of spending time with my family for a weekend, right?
Right.
Or, I mean, personally, I mean, just even when the national convention was in town at Rosemont, 20 minutes away from my house, my true intentions were to go to at least 2 or 3 days of the show. Work was not getting in the way of me getting into 5 days of the show if you really want to do the VIP experience. But, my wife was like, well, we're going to go up to the lake this weekend with family. And I was like, oh, okay, well, how should we do that then? I'm like, oh, here we go. Now it's going to cut into one of my days. And I'm thinking that, right? Like, and my wife's like, listen, you could go for X amount of hours. How much more card time do you really need? And then we'll just go straight from there and enjoy a weekend as a family. I'm like, okay, well, that gave me perspective. So yeah, I enjoyed the 4 hours I was there. It was an overwhelming experience. I felt some element of satisfaction, but I also felt a slight personal element of dissatisfaction too. I felt a little down when I left because I was having so much fun, right? But when I got to the lake with my family, it all was an amazing weekend. We had a great time. I had a great time spending time with my 2 16-year-olds, my wife, my in-laws, and my other extended family. We had a great time, and it just kept that balance. But some people would have been like, no, I think I'll go next year. I want to do the convention. It only comes around every 2 years to Chicago. That's a way of looking at that. And I would have felt really guilty if I decided to do, the convention and not spend time with family. And luckily it didn't turn out anyway,
Right. So it's all about just, prioritizing, making sure that you have your priorities in order and being healthy about the decisions you're making, being intentional about making sure that, if you do have something like the card show, the National Card Show, which happens to be in your backyard this year, coming up, maybe go for a little bit and then devote the rest of the weekend to your family. And
exactly.
Not let these sort of things completely consume you and take over in unhealthy ways.
And I think that, I think the guilt part of it, it's going to be one of those things that also would be the most sensitive thing out of those 4 that would make someone feel more self-aware about the issue. Like if someone tells you to cut down, denial. If someone feels annoyed, brush it off. I don't care what they think. But when the guilt starts happening, that's when your own self-reflection starts happening into the situation for any addiction out there. And then going down, leading up to the E, which is the eye opener, that gets a little tricky with card collecting, because with alcohol, it's like wake up in the morning, have a glass of vodka to start the day. Cards could be a little different. I mean, if you look at it with the eye opening of cards, like when you have to wake up in the morning and maybe check eBay sales, check what were the last 10 notifications in your Facebook thread for your group or your Instagram. I think the real part would be like if there's a break going on that early in the morning, like, is there an 8 o'clock break? Let me get involved. I mean, you haven't even brushed your teeth or taken a shower, you jump on a break. That's a true eye opener right there. That could be one of those things. The first thing you think about when you wake up is the hobby.
Yeah. One eye opener for me, I think that I've experienced is when you go into, let's say a Target where they have a bunch of blasters or megas on the shelf, and you go and grab 4 of them and you check out. You go and rip them, maybe in your car or at a bench or in the park. You hit nothing, and then you go back to buy another 4, and maybe you check out with a different cashier. Same thing, you go back for another 4, and the manager notices and comes up to you and goes, we have a limit here, by the way. You're only supposed to purchase X amount, which apparently is like, pretty universal rule across most retail stores now when it comes to the cards, because you have the resellers just buying them out the moment they put them on shelves, and then the real collectors don't get a chance. But again, when that manager comes up to you and says, hey, by the way, you're at your limit, and it's a little bit embarrassing, and you're like a little taken aback that they even said something, but it's also like kind of like a wake-up call, like, oh shoot, I shouldn't be doing this. I scratched the itch. The fact that I'm going back for another round or a third round is kind of a telltale. And that's at the very basic level. Obviously, when it comes to going full tilt online when you're on Whatnot, that can happen a lot easier, and you're in this environment being pushed or encouraged by the breaker or the streamer to keep buying and to grab that next team or grab that next spot, and the urgency and the FOMO is just so overwhelming. So it's kind of ironic how those two similar situations can be so vastly different just because of the circumstances or the nature of the environment. But I think eye openers are everywhere when it comes to sort of this hobby and the addiction side of it, where things might start to get out of hand a lot quicker than you would otherwise realize.
I think especially with people with, there is a part of the brain that is usually actually slightly enlarged in some people with addiction, right? I believe it might be the nucleus accumbens, but it's like one part of your brain, if they do MRI scans, shows a larger volume of that center of your brain in people that have addictive personality. And if, even if you have like an underlying mental illness too, that can make it a little tricky too. Like if you have anxiety disorder, baseline depression, maybe ADHD, ADD, OCD, these are all also other baseline psychological, disorders that along with this can all sort of mesh together and be worse for some people, unfortunately, so
100%.
Yeah.
So how can collectors sort of use these 4 what would you call them, benchmarks or sort of mental notes as like a self-reflection tool, like not necessarily to diagnose themselves, but as a way to sort of take self-inventory and to continue to check in on their own habits on a regular basis?
I mean, I think that, where the cage questionnaire comes in, when it was created, if you scored out of the 4, there's a 4-point scale out of each part of the acronym. If you scored a 0 to 1, it's not an issue. But 2 or more, there's, at least a 30 to 50% likelihood that you have a problem, right? Some clinicians actually think that the E part of cage is actually the worst outcome for physiologic problems, right? Like an alcoholic, if out of those 4 things, if you need an eye opener, that's a higher chance of alcoholism than any of the other 4. So I guess what you could ask yourself is, every collector could tell themselves, all right, let me just do the cage questionnaire myself. And if you score a 2, you have a 50% likelihood of having an issue in the negative facet of things when it comes to it's becoming more an addiction and a potential problem than not, right? So I think that everyone could do like a self. And remember, it's not a highly specific tool. It's just more sensitive as a screening mechanism. So if you have 2, don't feel like you need to go feel worse about yourself or anything like that. But if you start scoring a 2, then you start scoring a 3 or 4, then you have to actually accept that you might have a problem, and you should seek some kind of guidance, whether it's talking to your family. We all have our spouses we've talked to. I've talked to my spouse about this several times, and there's been times where I've been in denial, but then there's times where I said, you know what, oh, you're right. I think we got a big credit card payment coming up. Maybe I'll just hold off on cards for a month. It's not easy, but it's doable for a lot of people. They just got to make that actually happen. And of course, with Collectors MD, when it caught my eye, I thought that was really just an amazing thing, because I haven't seen a lot of that. I don't know if any other groups are out there that advocate the way you guys do, to have a forum or these sessions where someone could actually just talk and discuss their problems and, have, unbiased, reflections and advice and someone just to, open up to, because a lot of people is really just getting to the point of actually accepting the fact that you might have a problem and going to that next level. I mean, some people have probably have had interventions in the situation. Like, you spent $10,000 on this one card. We have a car to buy for our kid who's turning 16. These are things that could cause problems within the family. And when you start noticing that, that's when I think becomes an issue. I think when it starts affecting your family, when it starts affecting your job, and when, it starts affecting, your social life in a way where you prioritize this more than other things like seeing your friends or, going out and doing some other hobby other than just cards, right? Playing some golf, going for a walk. It's just, I think it's a lot of it is you've got to find a way to break the cycle and create a boundary, and don't not enjoy it, but you just find a way to enjoy it in your own time without breaking the other facets of your life and responsibilities and things that you're obligated to.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think like as you were walking through the cage questionnaire, it sort of really hit me how perfectly it translates into our world as collectors, and what we're trying to do with Collectors MD. I think the cut down, the cut down it's called, right? Question for example, how many of us have told ourselves, I'm going to stop ripping after this box, and then 3 boxes later we're still going. As I was talking about the example of being in a Target and going back for more, or even like the guilt piece, spending money we didn't plan to, hiding packages, or lying to our partners and spouses, feeling that shame afterward. Like, honestly, I've been thinking about, while you've been talking, how powerful it would be to actually implement this framework into our program at Collectors MD. It doesn't have to be like super formal. It could be relatively simple, where collectors could self-check, before things spiral. And
right.
Rick, maybe that's even something you could help lead the charge on within our sort of referral network as we continue to grow that out. It's definitely something we can talk about later on or after, this episode. But you obviously have the background, clinical experience, and you also understand the hobby firsthand, which makes your perspective just so incredibly unique. And I think having somebody like you walk people through how these questions can apply directly to compulsive behaviors like overspending or collecting could be a game changer for a lot of people, and just overall raising awareness. So that's definitely something I'd love to table for a future conversation, perhaps offline, and we can sort of flesh out what that would look like. But I know how you feel about everything that we're doing, and I'd love to have you be involved in a larger way if possible.
I mean, I would love to help a fellow community with my expertise and just my, I've been collecting, for a long time, and I have dabbled into the cage myself, and I mean, I think at one point I hit 3 out of 4 for sure. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. It's just that yes, I hit 3 out of 4. I don't think I needed an eye opener, that's for sure. But then again, have I not checked to see if my eBay card sold, or did I win that bid from 11 o'clock the night before? And if I did, great. And if I didn't, then you move on. And if you did, then that second set of elation is when you get that mail day, right? That's another aspect of, I can't wait to get the mail. Open that package, open that bubble mailer. That's another piece of elation you get. And then you feel like you're rewarded again, just down the road a little bit. So yes, I think someone like myself who has experience, I feel like personally, I've developed my sense of boundaries. I've developed my sense of priorities in the hobby. I love it so much as a passion. I didn't just get into it during the pandemic. I feel like it just, ignited me during the pandemic, because I had thousands and thousands of cards laying around at my parents' house that I wanted to go through again, back in, just collecting stuff I had just in general. But there comes a time where, the more the merrier felt like a really good thing. And I felt like I was a hoarder. So now I guess the next thing is now I got to start selling. So I'm starting to, I created a new platform to start just selling cards so you can start recouping. And I guess that comes down to like, what can we do about this? When you start feeling like you have a problem, when it becomes more than a hobby for people, it's like when you're starting to chase losses, right? You're starting to chase, the bad pulls that you had and trying to re-up again, right? When you're hiding your spending, that's another thing that can be very, very problematic for a lot of people, where, you know, you might have 5 different credit cards to use, and then you might just use that one credit card that you just use for cards, and you don't,
Right.
you know, you might not tell your significant other or your kids about it, but you just do it just because you're like, okay, I'm going to get away with it, but I'm going to pay it off. It's good, right? And that's another way of thinking that can be an issue. The mood swings, you know, the anger, the depression, the anxiety when the luck runs out, that could be manifested for people too. And then,
Sure.
then of course, you know, the obsessive thoughts, like especially if someone that has like an obsessive type of thinking. All right, well, when's the next drop? When's the next break? When's the next deal going to happen? The problem is social media will remind you left and right about it. You'll get email, text notifications. You'll get just like double digits worth of reminders of the day that, hey, a break's going on at 9 o'clock Central. Steel City Collectibles sends me an email, or, you know, David M's card shop sends me an email that, you know, the next Bowman's coming out, pre-order now. I keep that on my back burner, right? I mean, it's one of those things. So like, it's the constant reminders by these groups, and, you know, liking and subscribing to all these YouTube channels, which I love a lot of YouTube guys out there, right? You know, there's a lot of great guys out there that just, you know, show a box break, what the product's like, see what you think about it. And all the, you know, all those things are going to be what's problematic. But when you need to like step it back a bit, and when you want to find a way to, like, say, get back down to planet Earth, I mean, I think the things that would be helpful to do for yourself as a remedy would be, like, you know, just track your behavior, right? Track how much you're spending. Like, I've decided I wanted to start creating a spreadsheet of my purchases and sales from January till now. It's going to be a little bit of a project, but I want to do that. So when I see that I'm more in the red than the green, well, then, you know, then I know where I'm at, right? And then, you know, setting your limits on the budget itself just goes into that too. Like, I'm gonna keep $500, let's say $500 for the whole month, right? $500 a month will go towards going to Target online or going to a card shop, and that's it. Once that $500 is up, I gotta wait till the next month. You could just set yourself a limit there too. And then, of course, when those things aren't really working, you know, I think then it just comes to the point where you need to start talking to people around you. You need to talk to your fellow collectors. You need to seek out Collectors MD and find out what can I do? I feel like I'm just running out of space. I don't know what to do to get out of this cycle. Like, what can I do? And that's when you could start going to these kind of discussions and meetings, just like sort of like AA is. And it's, you know, I'm not gonna deny the fact that collecting can be very synonymous with alcohol and other illicit activities, but once you start going that path, yes, it can be bad for your health in a lot of ways too. The stress, the anger, it'll mess up your, you know, just your mind, body, spirit. It'll mess up your relationships. It'll start affecting your finances. Will affect even more stuff, right? I mean, you got to choose your battles. When I read that Reddit post not too long ago about a wife jumping on Reddit just to get, you know, advice about her husband spending, you know, 6 figures on cars and getting him into bankruptcy. That was shocking.
Yeah.
She needed help. Like, I need your guys' help to help me. What do I do here? My husband is way over his head. I mean, I need help. And she had to reach out. I don't know if you recall that thread, but it was,
of course. Yeah, no, I mean, I received like a ton of people reaching out and sending screenshots of that. And, you know, a few folks even tagged Collectors MD in the comments. And, yeah, I mean, that was eye-opening.
Definitely.
And what's scary is that that's just one of thousands of other similar stories. That's just one of the only ones, if, you know, it's far and few between in terms of people that are actually coming forward and sharing their experiences, or loved ones, you know, having the courage to seek help, or, you know, look for outlets where they can go to turn to for support. And so, yeah, no, that really resonated. And I think, you know, again, so many people are suffering in silence, and it's so important that they put themselves out there, have the courage to come forward and be honest with their loved ones, be honest with their peers, and, you know, look for ways that they can overcome these challenges. And, you know, that's what Collectors MD is here for. So,
I found it, one little thing I was going to add is I found it to be, recently helpful. Just feeling good about the hobby is like, when I have patients that come in, you get to talk to some of these young kids about just, what do you like to do for hobbies? And somehow maybe sports cars comes up and whatnot and whatever. You talk about it for a bit. And I've had the pleasure of bringing some of my own cards in to gift to them. And so I'll get some of their favorite players' names, make a little stack of cards to bring. I'm like, listen, I'm going to be working here, a few days. If you want to stop by, I got a little thing for you. And then I give them to them, and they're just like this, the look on their face, the elation in their eyes. Part of me is like, oh my gosh, I'm just spreading the knowledge of the hobby and the joy of the hobby. But then I also feel like I hope I'm not enabling anyone either, right? But at the same time, I'm thinking more like I just like to, it's just to make a kid's day doing something like that.
Sure.
I mean, ask about like, I have all these cards. What do I do with them? Donate them to wherever you need to do. I mean, I don't know if children's hospitals are taking cards, but all these kids in the hospitals, bring 1,000 cards to them just to give away. I mean, we give away stickers to patients. We could give away cards, and I bring old holograms from 1989 and 1990 Upper Deck to give these kids. And they're like, oh my God, this is so awesome. This is so cool. I mean, it's just another way of giving back to the community. If you could just do things like that, just to like, make other people feel the joy that you felt when you were 12 years old. So.
Yeah, it's almost kind of sad in a way that you even have to ask yourself or say something like, or like you have to stop and ask yourself if donating cards to kids or a good cause might be triggering for someone, right?
Yeah.
Or reel them back into patterns they've been working hard to keep away from. Like that's how deep this runs. Something that should be pure generosity and joy can still carry risk. Because of how conditioned we've become around the chase and the mechanics of the hobby. Like that's scary.
It is.
One of just kind of transitioning here. We do still have a few more segments that I want to get to, and we just hit the hour mark. So I'll try to sort of steer us in the right direction. But I want to make sure that you can share everything that is on your mind and that you want to talk about. There's no like time limit here or anything, so we can absolutely go the distance if needed. But I want to bring up like one of the biggest triggers I hear about from collectors, and you brought it up a little while ago, and it kind of dawned on me, and I definitely felt to myself is how these new product drops can completely derail progress and recovery. Right? You could be doing really well, staying grounded, setting budgets, and then all of a sudden a new release drops, and that FOMO just kicks in so hard. It's 100%. Like if I don't get in right now, I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss out forever. Like, and in a second, you're right back in the cycle of chasing. Like I used to experience that all the time when I collected sneakers heavily. Like at one point, I had 500 plus pairs of sneakers. This was in my like mid to late 20s. It just spiraled out of control. But I would say I'm taking a break, or I'm not buying anything this week or this month, and then there would be a shock drop or a quick strike is what we called them, and there's this limited window where you can access a product drop or sneaker drop, and if you don't buy in that moment, then you're going to end up paying resale. And so next thing I know, I'm scrambling to try to put in my credit card information, and I'm impulsively buying something that I didn't plan to, right? And this was like weeks after maybe going through a sense of some type of detox where I was like, I'm not buying anymore.
I mean,
it happens all the time.
Well, so it's it's corporate. I mean, they're very intelligent about how they do this, right? They space out these releases in such a way where it just becomes perpetual. There's no end to what's going to happen. There's not a big lag way between what's hot and what the next hot thing is.
Yeah, it's always flavor. It used to be flavor of the month, then it was flavor of the week, and now it's flavor of the day.
Yes.
It's going to be flavor of the hour, eventually. It's crazy.
Yes. It's an undulating curve. I mean, it's you get that high of the new product, then it sort of just fizzles out, and then you have the next high, fizzles out, next high, fizzle, and then the downside is if you're into multiple sports, I mean, you have baseball, football, basketball, all those releases, other companies, right? F1. I mean, there's
WNBA now is super hot. Like
super hot. I mean,
it's endless. It really is endless. They make it impossible for you to stop.
I couldn't find Prism basketball WNBA for the life of me for a while. I was like, where is it on select? Like where are these products? They're always sold out. And then, of course,
because They're
Caitlin
going
has
for
definitely changed the whole game. I mean, she's been just an amazing figurehead for the WNBA and what she stands for. And
double-edged sword, though.
yeah,
This actually made me think of some news that broke, I think, in the last day or two. We're hearing that Topps is not going to come out with a 2025 football class product.
yeah,
And for me, when I saw that, I was like a little relieved.
yeah.
You know, not just for myself, but for others, because, you know, with them being the only license holder as of or starting in November, supposedly, so long as, you know, Panini doesn't continue to kick the can in court, and you know, we'll see what happens there. I'm not holding my breath, but you know, they could easily, if they wanted to, just pump out more and more, whether it be licensed or not. But instead, it sounds like, you know, there's going to be like a forced pause here. And I think for a lot of us, like maybe a pause is what we need. Maybe like a quick break in between, you know, license holders, between the Panini and Topps takeover, or Fanatics takeover. Like, it lets us breathe, look at what we already have, and not feel like we're just constantly sprinting toward the next shiny thing. And of course, this only applies to football at the moment.
Right.
But I'm curious why that is, and how that's going to play out. You know, granted, this 2025 class isn't as hot or much of a draw as the 2024 class with Jaden Daniels and Caleb and Drake May and Bo Nix. But you know, it's still, well, you don't know until the season starts. We'll see
Right.
if the hype is there for Cam Ward and Jackson Dart and these other guys, obviously Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. But it's really interesting that they came out and said that. So we'll see what happens. But again, like, you know, sometimes we just need a pause, and if it's a forced pause, then that might be best case scenario for a lot of people.
Yeah, it gives you time to
maybe not the breakers or the manufacturers, but yeah, definitely for the consumers.
Yeah, I mean, you just need a time to breathe a little bit, and enjoy what you have, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just so perpetual right now that it's just getting the volume of cards and products and stuff out there. People get confused. I mean, trying to explain to a fresh young collector how to start. I mean, it's how do you start? I mean, I almost tell them, okay, start with something basic like the flagship collection, which used to be the standard, right? You know, it's just a nice way to dip into the hobby, and all these companies know how to even do that. They create these box sets of, like, you know, like the Topps flagship collection, a few packs of this, a few packs of this, a little medallion, a big card, and a couple special packs for $40.
Right.
Effective, right. But gets a little taste of what it's like, you know. And
yeah,
my nephew, it's funny. He's 8 years old, and he you know, my brother and I used to collect for a long time. My brother's not really into as much, but like, I just kept going. And my nephew, I tried to get him into it a little bit, enjoy the hobby a little bit. And he had a birthday recently, and you know, like, he got a box of like Donruss hoops basketball, and he pulled this case hit of Victor Wembanyama. And my brother said to me, I'm like, my son and I, my 16-year-old son and I also we're in it together so well to it. It's, you know, we've bonded greatly over the hobby and sports, and we're just big collectors together too. And we're like, oh my gosh, dude, you pulled a $200+ card. It's pretty amazing. And he's like, what, $200? Yeah. So for him, I went to a trade night and actually sold it to him for $190. I'm like, guess what? That card, I got you some money, buddy. And he's like, you got to be kidding. That's amazing. And of course, my sister-in-law was a smart one. She took that $190 and put it right into the bank account, right, for a savings. Yeah. But good. That triggered him to want more. And I'm like, oh no, here we go. Like, it's just like, you know, the risk reward is there, but when you hit that one card, you just want more of that feeling again. I want another $190, right? I mean, I wish I could think that in these malleable brains of theirs, like, you know, you're trying to do good, but you could also do a little bit of, like, you know, starting of like the addiction itself a little bit, because that feeling is very unparalleled. Like, once you get that feeling, you want to chase that feeling forever.
Right. Yeah, that's what's scary. And a lot of people, especially you know, the young generation, the young kids, get that feeling the first time. Maybe they experience a little bit of beginner's luck. Mm-hmm. And that is a blessing and a curse, right? You might get that big card and you're really excited and you found your new hobby or your new niche. But on the other hand, you know, the devil's calling you to keep going. And next thing you know, you're chasing the dragon. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
We see it happen way too often, where the churn, the whatnot churn, as we call it, people come in, get sucked in by that first hit, and then just completely burnt out within a week or a couple weeks, and it's on to the next for whatnot and fanatics. They don't really care about the well-being or the health and safety of their customers. They just want the money. So just like the gambling apps, they just continue to,
it's got to be $1 billion hobby. I don't know if I'm overstating it, but it's got to be $1 billion hobby. Looking at the fastest of everything from.
Oh, it is. The sports cards only. It's a $20 billion industry.
I mean, Travis Scott doing a concert at Fanatics Live. I mean, that's just pretty awesome. Livy Dunn walking around buying a cool card for Paul. I mean, that's just all that publicity. It's just everyone wants to be vicariously living that kind of dream. I mean, the content reels of the 20-second reel of someone opening a pack. This Shota was hiding in this pack for 10 years, and they pull out, orange out of 25. You're like, whoa. I gotta go find some of that old. Maybe there's still more packs hiding with that stuff in there. You have that.
And the price of that product is absurd.
It's out of hand, and the seeking behavior comes back again. That dopamine seeking. Now it's not like the seek is what's also a problem. You want to find that same capability, so you could be that one to post on your Instagram, have the bragging rights, be famous, have that money potentially happen, and just that's what people are driving for. Once you get that mental cycle of that going, the seeking behavior, then it starts to become a problem.
100%. Okay, I'm gonna veer us back towards our agenda, and the next segment we have 2 left, and then we're gonna get into our rapid fire round. But the next segment is the emotional and financial consequences, and so this is where it really starts to get real. I think for a lot of us, collecting is supposed to be fun, but it can also be a huge strain on things like we talked about: relationships, finances, work, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, from your perspective, what are some of the most common consequences you've personally seen when passion tips into this lane of compulsion?
I mean, I think a lot of it. I mean, if you look at, like you said, there's the emotional side of things and there's the financial side of things. I mean, the emotional side of things is just how your behavior changes, right? So, you're just focused on, let's say, a break. And let's say you're sitting in the living room, doing a whatnot break. You spin the wheel, you get the team you want, and you're excited. Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, I got the Commanders. And then you go through the break itself, and you get Ben Sinnott parallel, and you're like cursing and pissed and just annoyed. And then the people around you see how you're feeling. Like you went from high to low. I mean, that's just what are you doing there? Like, I mean. It's just like gambling, you hit a 7-game parlay for, put a $10 bet on and you win like $734. Wow. That is going to be, you're jumping for joy. You're happy. Well, you're so excited about Dad. Oh my gosh, I just won a 7-game parlay. This is amazing. And then you do it again because you want that parlay to happen again. And you lost.
Or worse, you hit the 6 legs and then the 7th leg just barely misses and suddenly you're full tilt.
Oh, right. Exactly. It's all it takes is one to mess you up. And it's just like that chase to get to that point. What's going on in your brain at that point is that your elation endorphins are starting to raise. You get that you're elevated. Your heart rate starts to elevate. Your catecholamines start to elevate. I hit 5. I hit 6. Oh my gosh. I thought the Cubs were definitely going to win today. You put your heart in that one team you love as your 7th leg, and that leg ruins you. So then you curse your team, you curse the parlay, you curse the situation. Completely low, completely downscale, anxiety, anger, depression. So that's like the financial parts of the highs and lows with the hobby. Right. And then you look at like the financial, I mean, that's the emotional side, the financial side. I mean, that's when it starts getting to the point where, for those that have disposable income or means to make money and say, you know what, they give themselves an excuse like, you know what, I have a great job. I do well for a living. I deserve to have fun. I'll tell myself, hey, I don't go to the casinos. I don't go to the bars. I don't barely do stuff. I don't have time for a social life. So I'm just going to use, what I'm going to do with my earnings to satisfy my needs. But there has to be a level of how good is that going to be? Like, is it just a couple $100 or is it a couple grand? And of course, you have obligations financially for your family. You got to pay your mortgage. You got to pay the bills. You got to put gas in your car. You got all these things. You got to know what is that asymptote of good. And then when it starts getting to the point where it goes beyond that point and it starts harming your financial situation a little bit,
Right.
where that extra money you spend could have helped pay a medical bill, or it could have helped put gas in your kid's car for the week, whatever. I mean, just whatever example, maybe the financial boundaries have to be met. The problem up around this, like, you don't keep track of it. So you're like, you might sell a few cards and like, don't worry, I made $1,000 this last week at the trade show. But you forgot that you spent $3,000 the week before. So you're negative
Right.
2 right now. And you don't think of that until you keep like a log of that. If you could be responsible and keep a log of your spending, then you'll have a realistic, real-time situation of where you are at all this. And if you feel like you are spending more than you're making on the hobby, then you need to take a step back. And that is when self-reflection comes into play. Because if you don't, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And that's something that, needs to be like reflected upon as yourself. But when you're in this so hard in the hobby, you forget about all that, and you're in
Right.
denial. You might feel a little guilt, but you're almost like making excuses for the situation until you're finally told by loved ones that you need to stop a little bit. Like, we need to take a break. But then when you go back to like, well, okay, I'll take a break now, but can't wait till November when that next optic drops. You could tell yourself that too. And that's like, that just becomes a thing. You're just thinking proactively in the future about making an excuse for the spending later, but you got to be in control.
100%. Really, really well said. So next question pertaining to this segment: how can collectors learn to balance sort of that love for the chase with setting boundaries?
I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like, you got to be able to, and it's not an easy thing, especially when you're deep into the hobby. It's not an easy thing to do. So it's not just going to be just straightforward. You got to allow yourself the willpower to do so, right? You got to love the highs. You got to accept the lows, but at the same time, that balance, if it's not affecting the priorities that you have to set for yourself, like if it's not affecting your family and your friends and your loved ones and your job, if you just create 4 important things in your life, and once you feel like it's not affecting any of those, then I think that balance is met. Especially even financially too. Like, you got to be able to understand that your job, your paycheck, it pays for a lot of different things, and you have that side fun money. Now you could tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to buy clothes or shoes because I have enough. I don't need any more. I'm going to wear, my dad wear for a couple more years, and use that into the hobby. But you got to be able to know at the same time, like, when you need clothes, you got to buy the clothes, right? I mean, you got to be able to figure out that the hobby, and also like, you got to look at just looking at what you have. I mean, when you look at your room, your card room, or your man cave, and you see all the stuff, when it starts getting flooded with stuff, I think you got to also suffer like, okay, I got too much stuff. I got to get rid of it.
One person doesn't need all that.
Yeah, you become a hoarder, and you also got to start getting rid of stuff. Because if you want to balance your hobby out, then start selling. I mean, I know you got to love what you have, but you got to learn how to PC the cards that really make sense for you. Like, for instance, like, I'll show you an example. Like, my son, he bought me this card out of his own money at a card show. He bought me my favorite card that just I'll never forget it. Like, I talked about pulling one day, was the Ken Griffey Jr. 89 Upper Deck, or 89 rookie.
Iconic.
It's pretty cool. And then the cool thing about it is it's an inscribed signature with it says 89 rookie at the bottom, which is even more special. So you got this beautiful Ken Griffey Jr. auto. I don't know if you guys could really see that. Sorry about the glare, but it'll say 89.
Move it over. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, just because your name was covering up, I think.
Oh, yeah. So my son bought me this and told me, Dad, I mean, he sold some of his own cards that he earned, and he was at the show. I was like, Dad, I know you really like that card. I'm buying that card for you. I'm like, no, Dad, son, it's okay. It's not a big deal. He's like, no, I want to do it for all the things you've done for me in the hobby, all the cards you helped me get, all the knowledge you've given me. I want to buy. It was my birthday was coming up too at that time. It was back in June, and he bought it for me on the spot. Actually negotiated with the guy. I got another $40 off the card. So he's really savvy on that. He learned about that, which, going back as a tangent to that, I think the good thing about the hobby now is also with the kids, they know how to negotiate, communicate, compromise. I mean, those are good things you could bring to the hobby. And it's just the real world and business communications, just real life, how to just talk to people, how to respectfully come to an agreement. These are all very positive things that the young kids got to bring to the hobby. These kids are savvy now. They know how to wheel and deal. They know how to find comps. They know how to say yes and no. But when my son bought me this, I mean, this is what I call a casket card. This goes to the grave with me. I'll never sell this card.
Sure.
It's a constant reminder of my son using his own money, that he doesn't have a job and he just uses his own funds for his own cards to buy something that made me happy. And that was just
awesome.
So emotional. It was amazing. And I'll never forget.
That's what the hobby's all about, man. Like, having those sentimental moments that you can cherish with your loved ones, your parents, your kids. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Those are the things to remember. Just remember those things. So that's where it brings the balance back again. Like, know that there's so much good in the hobby, but you got to know when you're outside the boundary, and everyone's going to create their own boundary. There's no set boundary. There's no literature showing this is what a true boundary should be. You got to make your own facets of the boundary, and you got to know that if you stay within that boundary, and when you start getting to the edge, that's when you have to start reflecting and getting away from the edge. But when you go over the edge, you're either going to hear about it by people that love you, or you're going to try to tell yourself it's okay to talk to someone about it. Such as, Collectors MD, or, if you need to see a psychologist or a counselor about that, things have now taken a turn for not so fun anymore. The hobby was awesome until it wasn't, right? For some people.
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, that's an amazing story, Rick. I really appreciate you sharing that with me and with our audience. That's such a beautiful moment for you and your son, and something obviously you'll both remember forever. And it also reminds me, something like in 1989, Donruss, Ken Griffey Jr. rated rookie. I mean, it brings us back to a time where there weren't parallels or holographics or refractors. I mean, it was just one card of the kid who everybody looked up to, and it became an iconic piece. And you can get the card. I don't know if it's like the original or reprint or what. I don't know. I don't have a ton of knowledge on vintage stuff, but I'm pretty sure you could get that card for relatively cheap. But obviously, the autograph is what makes it. It's just again sort of a nod to the fact that collecting used to be a thing of joy. It used to be so pure, and true hobbyists, true collectors get that and miss that part of collecting. And there's got to be a way to bring it back somehow. And so
I think it's all just like like you said, setting the boundaries. I mean, if it's a matter of taking a break and just like, don't buy a bunch of wax to open. Ripping wax is literally gambling. You never know what you're going to get, but it's fun. That feeling you get when you open up a pack by yourself or with your kids, or doing that infamous car rip, which never works for me. I've always gotten nothing out of those, but the fact of doing that physical ripping, the sound of that pack ripping, the smell, all those things will bring you back. I mean, just all those little nostalgic things will bring you back. But you could also then start just thinking, maybe shift it towards something else. Maybe just spend money on one card that you like, that you've been looking for. Well, don't spend $1,000 to find that card. Just buy the card for $100 or $50, and just be happy. You got and just have it. But what's the fun in that? People would say. Well, I think it also sets your limits a little bit too. Like, don't spend $1,000 to chase a Jaden Daniels rookie. Just buy the Prism rookie from someone else in a group or on eBay or whatever. Like, just buy that one card. Just tell yourself, okay, this is cool enough. I saved a lot of money, got the card I wanted, don't have all the extra fluff in between. I guess it's a W. You could tell yourself that. That's where you have to find ways or
that's where it becomes hard.
Everyone has a secret about finding ways to amend your hobby a little bit in the problems. I'm sure I have my ways. Alex, you probably have some tricks of what you would say would be helpful for people. The community of joining these meetings and stuff like that are also in the same boat. They might need to hear some of these things, or maybe they have a tip to say, you know what? I just buy a Visa gift card for the week for $100, and that's all I get to use. That's it. No other credit cards personally. Just buy a Visa gift card for $200 for the month. Once I go through it, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Ways your means, but also keeping a boundary of financial stability and not overdoing it a little bit. But then again, it's a matter of are you able to control that dopamine baseline again, right? Are you
Right.
able to do that? That's why there's a true psychology behind it too. That's why I think counseling is going to be very important for people, because it keeps them on track. It keeps them from wavering.
Yeah, no, really well said. It's so true. I think setting boundaries and making sure that you aren't doing things like hiding, packages, lying to your loved ones about purchases, and just keeping self inventory, keeping yourself in check are just so incredibly important. And we talk about that at great length at Collectors MD and in our weekly meetings and our daily chat. I think most of us have done the classic hide the bubble mailers from our spouses. Move it, some point it's practically a running joke in the hobby, right? But
Definitely.
that joke actually points to something real if it keeps happening. It's one thing when it's a funny story about a couple of impulse buys, but when someone finds themselves constantly sneaking packages, finessing their way into making sure to get that next product or next hit without the wife finding out, dodging conversations about spending, or feeling guilty every single time mail shows up, that's when it's crossed over from sort of a quirk or just a pastime hobby into red flag territory. So the humor softens it, but I think underneath the laugh is a signal of avoidance, secrecy, and
Yeah.
financial stress that deserves to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to transition over to our final segment here, which is hope, recovery, and practical tools. And so, on more of a positive side, because one of the biggest messages of Collectors MD is that balance is possible, right? What are some practical reset strategies you would recommend? Things like selling off, you mentioned that before, maybe saving, setting certain rules or limits for yourself. One thing that I think helps me, and I brought this up on the show in past episodes, is creating filters, right? Telling yourself, you only have 3 different buckets, let's say, that you can collect within. And maybe they could be 3 different sports: basketball, baseball, football, let's call it.
Mhm.
And I'm only going to collect vertical cards. I'm not going to collect horizontal cards, or I'm not going to collect die cuts, or I'm not going to collect inserts. It's just going to be like the base version of, from these modern, ultra modern sets. Things like that allow you to, again, filter what you're purchasing, so that if you see something that sort of catches your attention but doesn't meet the criteria that you've set for yourself, it's off limits. You're not allowed to purchase it. And so I think that helps some people. Again, like, this is, everybody's unique. Everybody's they're just wired differently. So some people might just have to abstain completely from collecting or from purchasing
Mhm.
because the moment they start, they can't stop. But as far as finding that balance, what have you seen personally really help? Maybe this could also apply to other areas. I mean, not necessarily, you can't really apply it to other forms of addiction like alcohol or gambling, because in those programs, abstinence is key.
Yeah.
And you have to abstain completely, which is what makes the nuances of what we're doing with Collectors MD a little bit more challenging in that sense. So, I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this.
No, I think that's very, very true, Alex. I mean, what you said is on point when it comes to you. That is quite the difference with the hobby addiction versus alcohol, drugs, and other philias, other addictions. I mean, there's abstinence. That's it. Now, I guess one person could say, well, how do you know you have a problem? You could try abstinence with collecting. Maybe take literally like a 2-week break completely and see how you feel. If you feel like you're jonesing a little bit, you start feeling that itch, you start feeling like antsy or anxious, that's a sign. That means that you do have a little bit of an issue that you need to think about, right? So let's say, okay, fine, you can't be abstinent for 2 weeks, but you want to change the scope of how you're going to do things. Then you're right. You're creating filters would essentially set those boundaries. And I think some things that people could do is, on a financial standpoint, let's say even starting today, create a spreadsheet. create what you've bought, make it as detailed as you want to be, brand, single, wax, whatever you want to do, make a list, make it all add up, how much you spent, and then go into see what, if it's just spending, then you can see that. But if you're starting to say, I want to start selling now too, make a sell column, and you can start seeing where you're at. Are you going to break that? Let's say you add up to $1,000, and then you sold a car for 200. Okay, great. I'm at 800 now. You're inching away at that kind of thing. That's a little project on your own. So you're also getting rid of inventory, buying what you want to, but then knowing what your spending is. The other option is create a project, right? Basically start a new project for your PC. Let's say, okay, I'm a Bears fan. I'm just going to collect just Caleb cards, let's say, or I'm going to collect, only Bears players for now and no one else. That's it. That's all I'm going to do.
Right.
As a Cubs fan, I decided to go back and start a project of creating, collecting all of Mark Grace's rookie cards, PSA 10s, right? It's not an expensive endeavor, but it's something I could do, right? I mean, it's something like, okay, I don't need to buy anything. Let me just focus on this. I'll spend a lot less, but I'll just chase and seek these cards over time and create a collection. People do that when they create a rainbow, right? I mean, I was creating a rainbow for a Cubs pitcher, Cade Horton. A lot of people know I have a pretty solid Cade Horton collection. It's on my Instagram and stuff like that. But the Super is still out there. The Black Wave 101 was sold to another person, and it's done. I quit on the rainbow then. I wasn't disappointed, but I'm happy with what I got. But if you create a little project for yourself, then you have like a little an adventure to go through, right? You have something that you could acquire in time, not all at once, because just tell yourself, I'm going to start with buying an 88 score traded Mark Grace PSA 10, which is like $50. I'll buy that, have it, and then I'll wait a week and I'll buy another one, or wait a month. I mean, that's fine. Just do that. And then you won't go to Target.com. You won't go to Walmart. You won't go to eBay as much, well, except for the ones you're looking for. You'll filter out other groups. You'll find a way to cut down, right? So on the Cage questionnaire, of course, do you feel like you need to cut down? Sure. Then this is a way of cutting down, right? This is the solution for the C, not the problem of having the C. So you could do things like that. You just got to prioritize a little differently. Abstinence is definitely not going to be easy for people. I mean, they will go through withdrawal. I mean, that'll make you edgy, make you annoyed. Then you find dissatisfaction in life at that point because it's that important to your life. And that's going to be a problem too. So you got to find that balance of, you got to know that you have a problem, number one, admit that you have a problem. And then you have to figure out, okay, if my problem's up here, how do I get down to here? And you got to find that space in between and find a project. You could do it. That's the thing. You need people encourage you to do it. And maybe, once you start seeing this kind of thing, you'll be focused on one thing and not so much focused on everything out there. Then you won't be worried about the next Panini that comes out, because the thing you're interested in, not even in Panini, right? So you're just trying to focus on one thing and then slowly get back into other things again, right? So the hobby's never just going to end. Although it comes I've seen posts with people saying, I'm getting out of the hobby. That's it. I'm prioritizing to something else. Like I want to collect shoes now. Okay, well, you're changing one vice for another vice, but at the end of the day, you could just completely do something different if you feel like that's affecting different facets of your life. I mean, there's other ways of looking at it, but it's hard to not love the hobby for what it is. I mean, if you love sports, you love cards, if you have a history with the area, and if you're in it with your family or your children, your best friend, you do it together. You got to be able to talk to each other about it too. You don't ever feel alone. That means that you got to find the loved ones and just explain, like, you know what, I think this has been going on. What do you think about that? You know what, Dad, let's not buy packs anymore. Let's just do this instead. Or let's not go to Target on a Friday randomly to see if there's been a drop, stuff like that. You cut those things out. That's part of the solution right there. Right.
Yeah. 100%.
You're making improvements, but don't deny yourself that piece of cake. Having a vice is not always a bad thing. Your body, the human fabric and the instincts, we just like to have things sometimes, right? Tangible things that make you happy. Instead of having 3 pieces of pizza, have just 1 piece and satisfy that need, right? It's just like even with dieting, have a carb diet.
A carb diet. I like that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
On that, but no, carb diet. Go carb dieting a little bit. Cut down. Don't completely abstain. I think that it's going to be hard. If you do it, good for you. If you have that self-control, but everyone's got a different sense of self-control and willpower. We're not all created equally with that. And, if you could create a little bit of a diet in the hobby, you'll lose weight in respect to your financial stability will be better. Your mental stability will be better. Your relationships will start amending because you started causing annoyance and sadness or anger among the people around you because you're doing too much of it.
100%. Yeah. It's just all of what you said, I agree with 100%. And these are all really great points. And I think depriving yourself from something you love, especially if it has the ability or capability of being manageable and not insidious or ruining your life.
Yep.
That's fine, but we still have to be really careful because at the end of the day, this hobby can ruin people's lives if we're not mindful. I've seen it firsthand, especially over these last 4+ months since starting Collectors MD. Things like people losing relationships,
Absolutely.
right? Wives or husbands, can go either way. Filing for divorce, people going broke, having to file for bankruptcy, getting buried in stress. And it sneaks up on you because it's wrapped in something we all love. And that's why knowing your own limits is just so important. And we always say it's not about being anti-hobby or anti-collecting. It's just about making sure it stays something positive in your life instead of something destructive. That was the word I was looking for.
Exactly.
Before.
And it's good to have loved ones around you. I mean, and by the way, sorry for all the moving around. I had my phone, my MacBook's about to die, and there was a lot of noise going on. So if you see me relocating different areas, hopefully that wasn't too annoying for people.
No worries at all. No worries at all.
But yeah, I think loved ones is important. If you have good friends and you have a good spouse, I mean, we love our spouses, but we want them to know communications in marriage is obviously a huge thing, right? And it's okay, to have that conversation with your wife or your husband. If you feel like this is an issue, maybe it can sort of help you keep tabs on it a little bit without reprimanding you. You don't want to feel like guilty even more of anything. If hobby is something they don't get, but they have to realize that this is a joy in your life too, right? This is something that gives us pleasure. We feel happy, we feel elation, but then we feel the other sides of it too. When we start feeling anger, guilt, anxiety, stress, and when it starts really dipping into the true things in your life, then that person needs to have a little bit of a talk. And even your community around you, even your collecting friends, they could understand the situation a little bit, and getting anecdotes from them, getting that help, and these meetings that you have weekly, which I definitely want to get on one of them. I know the timing when we talked about a shift during that time. It's the last hour of my 12-hour day, and I'd love to jump on even just remotely. I mean, do some charting and just sort of listen to what has to be said and maybe add a little insight if I have the opportunity. But
yeah, we'd love to have you.
These are important things to have around. And that's why I think that this is, I think someone obviously you realize that something had to break here. I mean, this is becoming, we wouldn't be having this conversation if the hobby was benign, right? It could be toxic. It could be malignant for some people, like a disease. And it gets to that point, it could be threatening in many angles of your life. So once you feel like you have this issue, I think it's important to know your boundaries, know when to fold them, know when to take a step back, and know when to talk to someone, right? It's okay to talk to someone about this stuff. And it could be someone professional. It could be your friend. If they're really your friend, they'll hear you out. If it's your family that could keep you focused and balanced too, that's also important too. And I think these are things that'll have to hopefully touch the hearts of many collectors out there. We just don't have the access. I mean, once the word gets out that something like this is available, this platform like Collector MD is available, I think it will help improve a lot of the people that are going to this this dark side.
Yeah. And Collectors MD is intended to be at its core a safety net, right? Like you can still collect, you can still be involved in the hobby. We're here to help guide you in a healthy direction. That's why this podcast is called The Collector's Compass. We want to help navigate people. We want to help them navigate their collecting journeys. We want to make sure that we're creating, positive boundaries and sustainability, and making sure that people are being thoughtful, mindful, intentional with their purchasing decisions, and not getting sucked into these common cycles and dopamine loops that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
I really want to make sure that that hits home for people, and they understand that we are not here to cancel any of the fun, or tell people that collecting is wrong, or you know you shouldn't be doing it. We just want to reaffirm, we want to remind people that it can be dangerous, if just like anything else in life. But
Sure.
cards, sports cards, break culture in particular, can become really toxic if you don't have the right filters on,
Right. Exactly.
for your own sort of purview.
Yeah.
um
The hard thing is, like, collecting is one thing, but then, the toxicity of technology and social media, which, I like social media a lot. I mean, it's so informative. It's fun to watch. But when you combine that with the hobby itself, it's almost like a dual problem, right? That you're trying to
Yeah.
really, because I mean, you're on your phone a lot, then a ton. You're sitting there watching a show, and you're like glancing at your eBay sales or your Instagram reel, and you're not paying attention to the show you're watching with your family or something like that. I mean, these are things that are
Yeah.
like, that's two things getting in the way of what you're trying to do on your own. I mean,
Right.
social
That's
media.
one of the warning signs we talk about all the time, is having way too much screen time. Just if you're constantly nosing your phone, especially when you're around loved ones, and I myself am one of the biggest offenders I know. That's something that I would do constantly. I'm just,
Right.
my dad would say, like, anytime I would come by and visit, like, it just seems like I was trying to keep a million saucers in the air at once. Right. I got one thing going on over here, another thing going on over here. And it's like my phone, the tablet, it just looks like when you're talking to me, there's so many things circulating in my head at once. And it's so true. It's all tied to well, when's the next break? When's this guy going live? When's that auction end? I want to make sure I don't miss out on this release, this drop. It's all happening, all at once. And it's like the wheels are always spinning. So you just have
The
to be
FOMO,
really, really,
like you said, the FOMO's real and stuff like that. So I think another
have to be
solution would be, like,
careful.
when you're going to, like, your family's house. I mean, I know someone created like this little trick, like when you're having a family dinner, which is not easy to do when your kids get older and they have all these things. But when you're having a family dinner, everyone just puts your phone in another room,
Yeah.
and that's it. There's nothing you
Some
do.
people just
People
can't
leave
do
the
that.
table.
Some people have such a hard time doing that.
They
Did
do.
you watch? Did you watch White Lotus?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the beginning of season 3, when she collects all their phones,
And that guy was like,
yeah, he's
no.
like, yeah, absolutely not.
And he sneaks
But
out
then-
anyway.
Yeah, he ends up grabbing it. But that sort of thing is so important. I'd have a hard time doing that myself. Now I have a little bit more of an excuse because of Collectors MD. But no, I mean, it's a really good point. If you're with your family and your loved ones, there's really no excuse. Unless you're saving lives, like yourself, as a doctor, or in another field that requires your immediate attention at all times. Like, there really is no reason for you to be on your phone 24/7.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I have a few more questions pertaining to this topic, and then we're going to get into our rapid fire round.
Cool.
So why do things like honesty, accountability, partners, and community matter so much, as in this process, in the road to recovery?
I mean, the biggest thing is not feeling alone, right? I mean, when you're feeling alone and independent in the situation, you're never going to really find that compass or direction, right? So you need to have these things around you to help tether you, right? A little bit, to help tether and guide you, right? Without it, you're going to lose yourself. I mean, that's the thing, and you'll be completely in denial, and you'll just go down this whirlwind of a black hole that you might not be able to escape. So you need to have the affirmation things to be part of that situation of part of the solution.
Yeah. And then from your perspective, like, why is it so powerful, or why is it powerful to combine peer support with a professional medical or therapeutic lens?
Well, because I think there is a medical aspect to all this. I mean, when you look at just the act of, like, how your body reacts to something like this, like, the physical, the emotional, the chemical, the psychological aspects of this. I mean, that's where we have, the ability to say that, there is a reason behind the way you feel, right? This is not just happenstance. It's just, there's a chemical trigger that is the baseline for your actions, right? I mean, this is with every addiction. I mean, we know that dependence and intolerance, these are things that'll happen physiologically in your body. When you have a chemical driving some of that, you can't take everyone's got the chemical. Some people have a lot more than others, unfortunately. And that's the thing, I think that once you bring the medical perspective to the situation, then you could almost say, will one day hobby collecting be in the what was called a DSM manual for psychiatry, a diagnosis? Right. It might be a diagnosis. I mean, there's gambling is a diagnosis, alcohol abuse and alcohol dependence is a diagnosis, of course, drug abuse. It would be more of like a thing called hobby addiction or hobby abuse. I mean, that could happen. I mean, I think that one day, as the way the things are going now, I mean, with the exponential way the hobby is going right now, it will become a diagnosis for a problem.
Yeah. And that's what we're working towards, because if that were to happen, we'd be able to identify the solutions to help remedy that sort of disorder, because it does exist. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're working with therapists, doctors, facilities to create a curriculum that serves, as a foundation for this sort of fourth gray area, right? Because you have gambling addiction, narcotics addiction, alcohol addiction, and then this sort of uncharted territory of the collecting, the overspending, the breaking culture, all of these things that are scratching that same itch in, a slightly different way, but aren't being talked about, especially within the medical world. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just too much going. I mean, it's just too much for the brain to take in right now. There's just so much going on. It's overwhelming. I mean, that's like the best word to use. The hobby is overwhelming and exciting and scary all at the same time. There's just so much of it. It's just, how does someone take that all in? Like, I mean, as a new collector or a young collector, I'm more worried about their generation versus our generation, who've, we've experienced life. We've been through life ups and downs. We know what it's like. We have probably a better sense of control than maybe these young kids that are doing it when they're 10, 12, 14, and get to the point where, like, they may forego education. They're not going to do good in school. They think they're going to do all this to put themselves through college and do all this stuff. Like, there's so many different ways of looking at it, right? I mean, of course, the hobby is a business. Some people say, oh, it's an investment. It is to a point, but not really. I mean, you can say the same for stocks. I mean, you can say, is it an investment? I mean, there's highs and lows, all that stuff, right? I mean, a true balanced 401k is an investment, right? That's those are things that are going to grow in time, because maybe you want to create your own blue chip top 50 cards, and you could aim towards that and let those ride for a long time until you actually can physically sell it. But there's just too much flair. There's too much pizzazz in the market right now. I think it's the young generation we're worried about right now. If anything, it's something that the team culture and the young kids out there that are so exposed to this thing. And when they see kids are the ones pulling these things, like when that one kid pulled a Mac Jones 101 Black Finite and sold it for $100,000, and now that card's worth hundreds. I mean, I don't even know. It's not worth nearly as much it was. That kid made 100 G's off a private collector, and that other kid's like thinking out there, oh my gosh, I want to be that kid too. I want to be able to have that same story. Yeah. It's just you're chasing a dream, and it's like, okay, you got to like be able to know the reality and dream state a little bit. It's all a lot of luck too,
Yeah. If you were to sort of summarize the last 5 years of the hobby, or like encompass it in like one notorious sale or a moment, it might be that Mac Jones $100,000 sale.
It was unbelievable, right? I mean, it's just everyone wants to seek that situation too. I'd like to be that person. I want to do that too. I want to pull that one of one too. Like, it's just, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of cases of cards out there. It's like, trying to play the lottery. It's just the same game. It's the lottery.
Yeah, it's glorified scratch off. That's exactly what it is.
You can sit, you'll win at a slot machine if you play for 3 hours easily. Yeah. Or you could sit for 2 minutes randomly putting $5 in and you win triple sevens. and be that person. It happens. I mean, it happens, but it's so random. You look at the odds, you look at the math behind it. The statistics are going to be against you at the end of the day, right? You know,
100%.
house is always going to win.
Yeah,
Fanatics will win.
I've been saying this from the beginning, and we don't endorse gambling or say that it's a better option by any means, but typically with a sports bet, you know, you have a 50-50 shot, depending on which side you pick, or even with something like blackjack, a hand of blackjack or roulette, red or black, odds or evens, like it's 50-50 of either doubling your money or losing your money. And with sports cards, it's like, if you're opening up a box of sealed wax, the chances of you profiting are like 2%. The chances of you not winning, but gaining back your investment from the value of the cards that you pull are like 10%, if that. It depends on the product, of course, but it's astronomically lower to profit off of wax or the hobby in general than it is compared to other forms of investing or gambling. So just, you know, at the end of the day, message to our audience is just be really, really mindful of that, and know that if you're getting involved with collecting or the hobby in general, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and that, you know, profit isn't at the forefront of your, you know, priorities or your goal list.
And cards aren't cheap either. I mean, getting a box of cards is definitely not cheap anymore. The prices are going up every year. It's insane for, you know, a box of chrome blasters for anything to be $40 when it used to be $20. But yeah, you know, people say, well, look at inflation.
Right.
You know, inflation, you know, things, the price of goods will always go up, but $40 for 32 cards.
Yeah.
It's like $1 a card or less. I mean, who knows what you're going to get, but you're never going to get your ROI. And when you open up 5 boxes and you get that one card that made up for all that, that literally feels like it's a W for people. You have that one card that you pull. Oh my gosh, it's worth $320. I only spent $220. I made $100. This is the way people are thinking. They're just going through that. They're justifying the means to an end of profit versus loss. And if you start thinking that way, that's when it starts getting more dangerous. So you have to think, one day, will they actually have disclaimers on cards, on the boxes, on commercials? If they do it for gambling, if you have a gambling addiction, you know someone has gambling addiction, call 1-800-GAMBLERS. You know, like, will they have that for sports cards one day?
That's what we're gearing towards. That's what we're trying to create.
That'll be a
I wanted to pull this up real quick before we get into our final segment here. But I wrote this piece last week, Breaking the Bank, hobby price hikes. Each year, we expect a slight fluctuation in prices across industries. It's part of market trends, inflation, supply and demand, the natural ebb and flow of product production costs. But in the hobby, the bar keeps moving drastically and not in the right direction, right? This was when Topps Finest Baseball came out, or the day it came out.
Yeah.
$500 a box, and last year's was $300. The year before was $225, and we're talking about better rookie classes and arguably a better design, which of course is subjective, but you know, $500 a box is just laughable. And it's the same exact story across the board. It's not just a price increase, it's a pattern year over year across almost every product line. We're watching manufacturers, platforms, and breakers push prices higher under the same tired excuse. That's just the market, right? And you know, we talk about how, you know, Breakers Delight dropped at $700 a box out the gate. Last year they were $450 a pop. Year before they were $330 a pop. And frankly, like, the markups are outlandish. They're insulting, right? And they're being exploited in that the reality that people will rip the product no matter the price, right? Fueling this sort of addictive behavior we constantly reference and amplifying them with a manufactured sense of urgency. It all just feels so deceptively calculated. And so, you know, who's to blame? Who are we pointing the finger to? So kind of go into, you know, a little bit of detail there, but like, the kicker is, like, it'd be one thing if these manufacturers were introducing innovative tech or game-changing features to justify these price jumps. Like, why are we going from $30 to $40 for a blaster, which is supposed to be targeted to, you know, a less mature consumer, right?
No.
Why are we raising the price by 25%? I believe $10, $40. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. So again, like, their mindset here is most boxes today move through multi-box breaks, so the per team price hike feels marginal to the buyer. But again, it's deceptive. And at
And
the end of
what's
the day,
more
like,
effective
numbers don't lie.
is the gamble within the gamble. If you look at Topps Chrome Baseball, I mean, you look at what they did in the last couple of years with the buybacks, right? So
Right.
if you get a buyback MVP, and that's all gamble right now. Everyone's like, okay, Shohei and Judge all day. Then there's a little bit of talk that okay, PCA could be that guy, and then you look at what Cal Raleigh's doing. Aaron Judge might be out of the conversation too. So you're basically Topps is basically hey, listen, Topps has been around since what 1952. If I'm not incorrect, 51 had Bowman. No, 51. I think 52 or 51. Let's
Something
say.
like that. Yeah.
They've been around they're the kings, right? But now that they're into the conglomerate more and they're just a technology quality to a point. When you have a gamble within the gamble to chase something that may not happen, and if it does happen, you use that card for more cards. It's not
right.
If you pull the rookie of the year, we all thought it was Jacob Wilson for a long time. People were buying Jacob Wilson rookie red logos for $50. Now he might not get rookie of the year if Nick Kurtz gets it, but he doesn't even have a rookie shield. So it's just a gamble within the gamble to do more towards the industry and getting more cards. So if I get a $20 buyback on a Shohei card on a box that was blah anyway, I'm like, at least I got half my money back, but half that money is going to go to the card shop to buy more cards. Do you see how it's just so crazy how they loop you in?
Yeah. I want to just call out one more line or two more lines from this article, because I think, again, it'll resonate with folks. If this continues without oversight or accountability, it's the kind of greed that doesn't just strain collectors, it risks undermining the entire hobby. The hobby can't thrive on adrenaline alone. It needs accountability, balance, and a fair shot for everyone, not just those willing to pay whatever the market will bear. And if we don't call out the deception now, it'll cement itself as the norm. And once that happens, it's here to stay. So I think this reflects on a lot of the themes that we talked about here today. So it was fitting to bring that up to close things out.
No,
yeah, appreciate that.
That's excellent. That's very. That line alone is just exactly what we need. And the question is, like, how is it going to happen, though? People are saying, well, just don't buy cars anymore and see what happens.
Yeah.
How's that going to work? I mean, just don't buy those retails anymore. Let this.
Don't support the manufacturers like that. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
No.
So yeah, we're figuring it out one day at a time. But I think the solutions will be determined on a community level, and that's something that I always say. Collectors MD is a community platform, right? Yeah. It's all about peer support, helping one another, looking out for your neighbor, looking out for your peers. And it's not just me running this, it's everybody who's involved. Our weekly group meeting, our daily group chat, folks that I bring on the podcast, including you, Rick. We are trying to do this collectively as a community and finding the solutions, the short-term and long-term answers to help people collect with intention and not compulsion. So before we wrap, we do this quick rapid fire round. I'm going to give you some short questions, and you just give me the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
So let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead, shoot.
Awesome. By the way, we're coming up on 2 hours. This is going to be officially the longest episode of the Collector's Compass to date. So
I've had so much
fun. Congratulations.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Set the bar high. Yeah,
time
awesome. flies. Time flies when you're having a great conversation.
I'm a big talker too, so maybe I was giving another.
No. This was fantastic. Rick. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so first question. First card you ever remember owning or chasing?
1987 Topps Mark McGwire.
Awesome. Most meaningful card in your collection today? I think I know the answer to this one.
This guy right here. I mean, I have a few, but this one it just checks all the boxes for me. So I hope I'm sure my son's seeing this, or he'll see this later, but I love you, buddy. This is a keepsake for life, man. And you'll have this one day, I'm sure.
That's awesome. One card or set you'd love to own someday?
Well, I think I made that come true recently. I bought a full 1986 Topps football set with the green borders off a collector on one of these vintage groups. So I guess I sort of fulfilled that just not too long ago. I got the full set. I've always dreamt of having that set. But if I had to make one more set happen, and this is a highly attainable set, I would love to have the 1986-87 Fleer basketball set with all the Hall of Famers and the GOAT MJ, Michael Jordan's artist, iconic. That's actually part of my grail list. I like to just get a PSA 9. It's only gonna be 18,000 versus $100,000 it's worth. But one day,
that's a blue chip though.
It's a blue chip, but if I had that set in completion, which some people have had full PSA 9 sets, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's a great set. So I would love to have that one day in my collection.
Yeah, I know Jeff Wilson has the whole set in his office mounted. I think each card is mounted on the wall. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna actually be on the Jeff Wilson show in 2 days.
Nice.
So quick plug to Jeff. Looking forward to that, and reaching his audience and continuing to spread the positive word about Collectors MD. Yeah, will do. All right. Favorite player, past or present, any sport?
I would say for favorite player, I would have to say overall, Michael Jordan for sure. Being a Chicago guy, got to experience 6 championships in that lifetime so far. What he's done for the sport, and just in so many different ways, from everything. I would say he's my favorite player overall.
Awesome. Love that. If you had to choose rip a box, buy a single, or trade with someone, what would you pick?
I would probably trade. I would say I would like to I think with my priorities now, I would just like to just buy the single for now. I love the ripping part, but it's unpredictable. I love the trading part. It's a lot of work, but it's nice community one-on-one with someone, necessarily meet people. But yeah, to make it easy, I just want to find the card I desire and just buy it and just be done with it.
Love it. Okay. Best hobby memory that always makes you smile.
This is a funny one. This is actually more of a hobby smirk. But when I was starting to collect, my neighbor he collected cards too. And the biggest snipe I would say was when my mom bought me the 1989 Upper Deck factory sealed set with the Griffey Jr. When Upper Deck came out, 1989 Upper Deck, I had the whole set factory sealed. And of course, not even the Griffey, but the Cubs were so hot that in 1989, when they were in the playoff run, that Jerome Walton's extended card was the hottest card to buy at the time. And it was in that set. This neighbor of mine was like trying to say, come on, man, I'll give you whatever for just break this set. I'm like, I don't want to break this set. He's like, how about this? I'm going to give you this, and this. Very enticing deal at the time. But the one card that I'm talking about stands out was what he thought was a Joe Montana third-year card.
Wow.
And I looked it up. I'm like, this is not his third-year card. This is actually his rookie 1981 Topps. It just showed he played 2 years before that on the 49ers. So I went ahead and broke the set, gave him the card. He gave me the card. I definitely won that situation. Still have the Joe Montana. And that Jerome Walton's worth a quarter, maybe. So,
I don't even know the names.
I felt like he thought he was ripping me off, but I think I ended up getting the better end of it long term. So that was one I'll never forget.
Speculation. Even back then, you never know.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more for you. One red flag you think every collector should watch out for.
I think the biggest red flag right now would be I guess don't buy into the hype too much. Like, sorry, it's my dog.
Your dog wants to lean.
Don't buy into the hype too much because you could get burned, right? Like, I think the biggest thing is patience, right? Like for example, don't jump into something that will go down in price eventually, potentially. There's a good chance it will, even if it's the hottest card, because when volume happens, supply and demand, it all works out. So like when people were trying to go and buy Jaden Daniels Prism Hollows for $250 or $300, now you could get them for $190, $200. Just wait a little bit if you have patience. That's the thing. Like the red flag is the hype. Like don't buy into it so hard because
everybody gets killed on hype.
We get killed on FOMO and hype. Like we want to get into that next when Optic comes out and we're looking to get Ashton Genty, Colson Loveland, Travis Hunter, Jackson Dart. When those first rookies come out, there'll be plenty available in 3 more months after that. Like there's
you don't need the first card from the first set. You don't need the XRC. Like you can wait.
You
I
can
love
wait,
that.
and historically, we'll get that card eventually. It just will take time. But if you don't have patience, which is another big thing about the hobby, is learning about patience. Like
Patience.
it's so hard to jump on and be part of the hype, but if you want the card, if people want the hype because also like they want to turn it over fast, yeah, it makes sense. But like it's the same thing. I had a Michael Penix Zebra that I pulled from a blaster box when the Select first came out. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never pulled a real good Zebra. And Michael Penix on top, and it was a club level, which is awesome. Looked on eBay, it was $850. I could have just sold right there, but I actually started to enjoy the car. I'm like, Michael Penix is good. It's a cool card. I've had a Zebra. And then eventually it all leveled out on eBay, and I eventually ended up selling a card for a little over 400, lost half my value.
Yeah.
But if you want to think that way, then you're just doing it for the money of it too. But that's another red flag. Just don't get into the greed of it either. Like go into just have a if you're going to be a hobbyist, have a passion and find something that you like, whether it's your favorite player, your favorite team within that sport, and don't put your eggs in all in one basket. That's the biggest thing. Don't put your eggs in one basket. You got to diversify like stocks. You can't just buy one thing because it can go up, but it could definitely go down.
Yeah, 100%. And you're literally covering all of the themes and topics that I've written about with the daily reflection. This was actually yesterday, patience over pressure.
Oh, wow.
And just, key takeaways here. Patience gives us permission to pause. It allows us to save. It quiets the noise. And when we practice patience, we shift from reaction to intention. We stop letting algorithms, auctions, and hype dictate what we buy. Instead, we start curating our collections to reflect who we are, not what we're pressured into buying. And these things are so incredibly important to just keep in mind. Write down if you need to, put it on a post-it note on your, computer or monitor. When what doesn't come back as easily as the money we lose to impulsive decisions or the peace of mind we sacrifice when panic or FOMO pushes us to make rushed purchasing decisions. So today, let patience be your compass. Step back, breathe, and trust that the best parts of collecting aren't found in the hustle and bustle, but rather in the slow, intentional pursuit of items that bring you lasting joy and a peace of mind. Patience isn't just about waiting. It's about choosing peace over pressure. So I think you covered most of that with what you were saying, but I just felt, compelled to bring that up, given that we just covered that yesterday.
This is perfect. What I just read right there and what you said. I mean, that's literally exactly what I'm suggesting too, and I think it's very spot on. You gotta, it's a lot of it is, you gotta be able to train yourself mentally and emotionally to tackle the hobby. There's so many ways of tackling it, and don't feel like you're gonna be like, Pac-Man. Great guy, met him in person. He's got awesome live. But he's got a means to an end.
He's from here in Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great, nice guy. He's got good stuff. Striker breaks, Pac-Man, Sky B cards. I mean, these guys are all very informative in the hobby. They're like, Striker will talk to you about, okay, here's the product. Here's my spreadsheet about what your best value for your money is to what you could pull, your pull rates, the percentages, the math. Like, if you're going to spend your money, just buy a mega. Don't buy a blaster or a hobby or jumbo. And same thing with Sky B. He'll buy a ton of stuff. You're like, oh man, this guy's got all this money to buy all this stuff. I mean, he's got a business to run too, but he's also very informative. Like, this is what you're going to get if you buy this. If you like it, cool. If you don't, it's because of what I showed you here. But don't let that be an example of just 20 boxes. I mean, this is just a taste of what you're feeling, a preview, right? So just don't get yourself lost in all the stuff that's out there in the platform, because there's people that have
a lot of noise,
way more than you, and there's people that have way less than you. So.
Yeah.
Know your means.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. All right, last question for the rapid fire round, which ended up not being so rapid fire, which is totally fine. I take responsibility for that on the last one. But what is one piece of advice you give your younger self, or maybe your kids, but your younger self as a collector?
You should have really convinced your mom to buy that 86, 87 clear set on Tough Stuff for $800 when I was around. No. I guess, my younger self, in respect to the hobby itself, I think the thing was really just remember all those joys, right? Just remember those memories. I have a lot of memories of moments when I went to a card show in 91 when you saw all the stuff around you and how when 89 Upper Deck took over the industry and really changed the industry, we saw all that go up and stuff like that. But I kept my means, right? My parents would give me some money for chores and stuff like that. And I would just go to the card shop, spend some of that money. And I remember that, but it was also important that I had means by me. And then that's the thing is like, I could have done other stuff, maybe work way more and more, but know your means. I mean, just enjoy what you have in front of you. Like, just don't take it all for granted. Don't lose the focus of enjoying what the card is itself. I mean, cards were created to, teach you statistics, fun information about a player. Like, that's what I told my nephew. I'm like, hey, buddy, read the back. You can see how tall they are, where they were drafted, where went to college. Learn about the sport. I mean, it makes you want to follow the sport more, and then you'll love, you'll learn about stats, you'll learn about facts. Enjoy the card. It is a piece of cardboard. It's got a lot of information on there. It's a moment in time for sure. And don't lose that passion. Like, just enjoy what you have in front of you. Like, if you get a box of cards, look through them. Check out the design, put it in some light and see what it looks like in a mirror. Enjoy the technology of the card. Enjoy what that card is, beyond just the value. Enjoy it. And I think another fun thing that also could get people going, especially with their kids, you buy all this product, you have all these commons, build a set together. Yeah. Spend Friday night when you're home doing a puzzle, and let's start building that Donruss Optics set. And then you could make a checklist of the cards. I need number 52, 97, 104. Then you could chase those cards as like a little adventure too, right? Enjoy those cards, There's different ways of looking at it, but don't lose the passion. Because once you start doing that, when it's just becoming just greed and money, then you've lost it. Then it's just going to break you. You got to enjoy it for what it's worth, even if it's, and also know how to accept your losses. Like, a loss is a loss, right? You just got to take it how it is. You're not going to win everything. You're going to lose sometimes. And then when you do, don't lose sleep over it. Don't cry over it. Don't get upset. I mean, it's okay to be emotional. You're a human being, but move on from that loss. And that's it. Don't let it consume you.
I love that. Great way to close out that segment, and appreciate you playing along with that. That was a lot of fun, and for giving us a quick look at what makes you tick, both as a doctor and collector. So closing things out, Rick, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing both your story and your expertise. Before we wrap up and say goodbye, do you have any final advice for collectors on spotting early warning signs, those moments when it's time to pause and check in with ourselves? And why do you think awareness is really the first step towards healthier collecting?
Well, I think the timing of that question is also good for the timing of just recently in life, right? I mean, I think that there came a time, like, I think maybe everything happens for a reason. I was starting to get to a head of collecting at this point. I was buying a lot more than I should have. And there was a lot going on with that where, then you have to think about the other stuff that was going on in my life. And I'm like, okay, once you started hearing about that the hobby's consuming a little bit more financially or emotionally from your loved ones, then it started opening my eye a little bit. Like, at the beginning, it was a little bit of denial. And then I started hearing like, okay, these guys are telling me things because they care about me, right? Like, they want to make sure that I don't get into a deep plunge here. And I think I went from denial to accepting, right? And then I think the timing of me just looking through Facebook that day and I saw your post, I just, there's a billion posts, but yours just was the first thing I read, and I just saw your post and I'm like, oh, and I read a little bit deeper into that post. I'm like, wow, the timing of this is very amazing. And I felt like I felt compelled to reach out to you. Like, as you saw, I did that day. Like, I mean, you probably just, I'm sure you get a lot of people reaching out for a reason, but I just want to reach out because I want to be part of the solution too. Because I am also, I don't want to say a victim in the hobby, but I love it, but I've been on the dark side a little bit. And now I've set my boundaries, and I have hoped to regress and be away from those dark angles that I was starting to go towards with selling and buying and all this stuff, and just the time I was spending on it. So I think the time. So I guess the take home on that is, if you're lucky to have people around you to tell you that you're doing a little bit too much, even if it's like the slightest comment, first of all, take it to heart. Don't be defensive. Don't be angry. Just hear them out and see what their angle on it is, right? Because they don't
Right.
have this passion. My wife doesn't know how much joy this card brings me.
Right.
She's just a piece of plastic with a guy on it, right? I mean, but I think when it starts affecting away from that passion onto other things, like, okay, you know, you're spending a little bit more than we should have when we got to pay for this car payment, or, you know, you've been to 3 card shows in a row. Maybe we should go out to dinner and have a date night, you know, like,
Right.
when you start hearing stuff like that, you're just almost like, oh man, this is becoming real now. Like, this is now that's sort of like take a damper on my passion for a little bit, but that's good though, because it brings you down to planet Earth. So if someone around you, whether it's your kid, your wife, your friends, even just anyone else that's important to you, tells you something about something, don't take it negatively. Just hear them out and use it as a reminder of, okay, maybe there is something going on, and then self-reflect. And then hopefully everything we've talked about here, whoever's listening out there, could sort of feel that it's okay. Maybe give yourself a quick cage questionnaire every so often. And if you go from 3 things to 2 things, that's great. I mean, you know, no one's trying to take away the hobby for you. Like you said, we're not trying to bash the hobby, like you said many times, but we're trying to get to the point where you don't want to go to the tipping point of negative aspects of the hobby. And so that's my best, I guess, to sum it up. Take criticism constructively and roll with it, and just be good with it, because these people care about you.
Really well said, Rick. Thank you for all of that. And I think, our listeners are definitely going to find a lot of use with a lot of the things that you shared on today's episode. Awesome. So real quick before our outro, where can watchers and listeners reach you if they'd like to continue the conversation or connect with you one-on-one?
Feel free to reach me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'll give you, I'll give you my personal email. My email is aakar76@hotmail.com. I have an Instagram page. I actually created an Instagram page away from my personal page, so I just created a card page. So on Instagram, the Gemini Collection 76. So you can reach me through private message. I'm in multiple Facebook groups. Some of you maybe listening may know me, or maybe have seen my name, but reach out to me any way like that. If you needed some advice or needed some like candid, like just anecdotes from me, I'm happy to help people. That's part of my job. I'm a physician because I want to help people in multiple ways. I mean, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I know what it feels like. I'm not innocent in this whole game of collecting. I love it, but there was a time where it was getting annoying, and I was like, okay, I need to find a way to find that balance. And I think I'm finally finding ways in that balance. And I think that also having someone to talk to, like these platforms you created in these groups and these weekly meetings, I think it's just take a dive at it and just listen to some of that stuff. There's people out there. Don't feel like you're alone. Like, I'm sure there's thousands and thousands of us out there that feel like we don't have a problem, but you have to admit to yourself, you have a little problem in some way. And it's not a bad thing, but just don't let it turn into other things that might kill it for you. So if you have a question or if you have a concern, that you're concerned about, if you needed my general, a professional or anecdotal or advice on that, feel free to reach me on Instagram, Facebook, shoot me an email. And it's another way of just meeting other people. We're just meet people for a reason. This is a cohesive hobby in more ways than one, and then that's a good thing about it. You meet people, you're going to start making relationships, friends, and you learn something from these people, and that's what's important. Like these colleagues and these just people in the hobby, whether you're male, female, whatever. I mean, it's just becoming more of a thing now, and it's just exploding. But don't be caught in the explosion and get hurt.
Yeah. Rick, thank you so much for taking the time. This was an incredible conversation. Again, I think it's going to resonate with our audience. And for those of you who have been here all along, thank you so much. For those of you who will be joining us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, any of the other platforms that we syndicate the Collectors Compass on, we thank you for your support. If you'd like to connect with Dr. Shah, also known as Rick, or learn more about his work, you can reach him directly on any of the social platforms that he just mentioned. And as always, if you or someone you know is struggling with compulsive collecting, overspending, or the mental toll of the hobby, we invite you to join our weekly Collectors MD peer support meeting every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. It's free, anonymous, and a safe space to show up exactly as you are. The link is in our description below. And our next meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, August 19th, again at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Also, be sure to check out our past episodes of the Collector's Compass, along with our 2 other podcasts, Behind the Breaks and Collector's MD Features, now streaming across all major platforms, again, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and more. Thank you again for tuning in. Remember, collect with intention, not compulsion. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again, Alex. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate you.
Later.